Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Swing and a grounder to third. Fair ball down the line. In to score is Kike Hernandez. Kiermaier on his heels. Racing around third is Ohtani. He's in to score. Mookie Betts, a bases clearing double, and it is 9-0.
Klubnik will check up under center, brings a man in motion from the left-hand side, throws, has a complete. Williams is going to throw it again to Brennan. Still got it, touchdown!
A little trickeration there. I love it. I love it.
Miller in motion to the right side. Snap goes to Jalen. Looking downfield. Got a man. Bernard, catch made. Touchdown, Alabama. 34 yards. Jeremy Bernard on the catch. Jalen Milroe on the strike.
McCray is the back. Altmaier in the gun. 43 all as we start overtime. Snap back Altmaier. Looks to throw. Throw into the end zone. Looking for Bryant. He caught it. Back of the end zone. Touchdown.
Left tackle. Play fake Beck. Looks and now runs to the right. Slings it into the end zone. And back line of the end zone. He caught it. Dylan Bell, I think. Yeah, touchdown. Right in the back line of the end zone.
Howard steps back to throw. Looks right. Pump fake. Now will run and has room and hooks down at the 28-yard line. The clock has run out. The clock has run out. Will they review it?
The referees have left the field.
Well, that's an indication.
Game is over.
All right, game is over. It's a final. Oregon is defeated. Number 2, Ohio State, 32-31. It's officially over.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. What's up, DB?
What's up, buddy? How we doing?
We're doing all right this morning.
Yeah, doing all right.
How was your weekend?
Watched a lot of sports.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I got
a lot going on.
I got sports coming out of my brains.
You got a couple big Dodgers wins this weekend?
Yeah. Just not giving up a lot of runs.
Yeah, it's you're going to win a lot of ball games in the postseason. You do that.
Yeah. Funny thing is when you ask me, you're like, oh, why are you've been down on the Dodgers all year. Why are you going to take them to win the World Series? Because nobody else thinks they'll win. Finally. Right? That's what
You just like being in the little under the radar.
Yeah, it's just I mean.
Well, and the Mets have been the darling of the postseason.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they have. I don't believe somebody said last week overachieving. I almost never use that word in sports. I think you can maximize.
It's also hard to overachieve when
over time.
Well, also when you have a $300 million payroll, I think maybe you're just like playing up to finally what you should be.
Yeah.
It's hard to overachieve when you have the highest payroll in baseball.
So it's far from over, but I do like the fact that lineup was just good to keep down that long.
Yeah, 100%.
And we'll see. They're pretty left-handed heavy, so at some point maybe the Mets staff can figure it out. But it was just interesting to see the Dodgers bunt, move guys over, and actually get hits. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not gonna pretend to watch them as much as you have, but like that's not really what they've been doing most of the year, has it?
Yeah, like especially in those situations.
Yeah,
but Roberts does have some small ball mentality, but it's hard when you have, Betts and Ohtani and Teoscar and Freeman.
Yeah, you're like you don't really want to take outs away from those guys, right?
Yeah. It's not like you're going to be Operation Buntsville, but it worked out last night. Hopefully that got Ohtani going. I mean, he was always good with runners in scoring position in the postseason, but had been really, really poor.
Yeah,
with the bases empty. So I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I am. I'd much rather be even though I hate the Lakers right now. I'd much rather be a Dodgers fan and not have to split my fandom than be a Guardian and a Browns fan. Like I
both
can't.
On a struggle bus this morning.
So I've got to ask Coach Samanji because he is in fact a Guardians and a Browns fan. He played scout team quarterback the other day.
Lamanji did?
Yeah, he was just working so he's very, 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 very particular.
Yeah.
When we do like inside run. So we split it up and it's just all the inside runs that the other team does. And I mean, it takes like 16 days to draw the cards because he wants all the multiple ways. And so he just rep it over and over and over again. So he likes to play quarterback. and he does the cadence, and I dropped a Brian Sipe on him. And I thought he was like gonna let me be head coach for a week or something. Like, he was so tickled. Kids are like, Brian Sipe, man. I said, never mind. It's an old Cleveland Browns reference.
It's a little before their time.
Yeah, but he'll rock. Like, he'll occasionally rock. He'll rock. He is an Ohio guy.
Well, yeah, Youngstown guy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Through and through. So I ask him about his emotions. I can definitely tell you Deshaun Watson would not be a Paul Lamonchi guy.
I'm shocked. I'm stunned here. This is
would not be Paul Lamonchi.
Well, I'm just blowing up one of our group chats last night.
I don't know if Deshaun Watson would be anybody's guy.
Well, apparently whoever's making the decision, Stefanski still is just
So I guess he's back to not being a good coach.
Man,
we don't know. We're fickle with Stefanski.
We don't know.
I know who's not a good coach. Sirianni's a goofball.
I will say, committing to Deshaun Watson over and over every week kind of negates any good coach you've got in you. Because I mean, you saw Cleveland.
How mad do you think the league is at him?
Oh gosh,
they're like, listen, man, you single-handedly ruin all guaranteed money for everybody,
forever. I bet the NFLPA hates him so much.
My gosh. Everybody. They're like, this dude. They're looking for loopholes and magnifying glasses. But apparently we found out this weekend, man. We've been, maybe it's just because I'm sensitive because I coach, but number one, winning is hard.
Yep.
And number two, like, situational awareness and in-game thinking is even more difficult.
Whew.
And we're really good at pointing it out here in fan bases, but I'm telling you, man, it's not very – so it's hard.
I get that it's hard. And so somebody – I made a comment on Twitter. I was like –
Of course you did.
Well, I mean, the lack of situational awareness there was
pick a game.
Well, so Will Howard at the very end.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that was pretty bad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And somebody hops into the mentions, and it's like, yeah, because you could do so much better. And it's like, no one ever said that. Two things can be true at once. It can be hard, and you still have to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Will Howard has to be better in those situations. And two, I could not do that.
Well, I mean, you could tell somebody, hey, don't take a sack, get out of bounds.
Or
throw it away. Like,
yes.
And here's the thing. Like, tell that guy, tell the apologist to zip it. Because, no, I'm serious.
I know.
You have headsets.
Yeah.
You can communicate.
Yeah.
He just panicked. That's all.
Yeah.
And that happens.
Sure.
He just panicked.
It was a big mistake.
Yeah.
It was a big mistake in the biggest moment he's probably ever played in.
I almost watched a DB take a knee after an interception.
Yeah.
Which inevitably would have tied the game with South Carolina and Alabama.
Yeah.
Right. Like, stuff like that happens.
It does. And in that case, you don't have the benefit of talking to the guy about that very specific situation all the way up until 15 seconds before he takes the snap.
Hey, so
how many times in Will Howard's year do you think they were like, hey,
I don't know,
no sacks?
But I am a little worried about
get down early
day in game though.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I know people be like, oh, what took you so long?
They win a lot.
Yeah. Right. So I'm not going to be
that's what took me so long. They win a lot.
They win a lot.
Like
so
a lot.
It's not like I'm going to be like pointing fingers, right?
Yeah.
The old glass house. But I did say for a couple of weeks, I said, well, maybe Washington will help when he comes back. I said, they're putting up okay stats. I don't like the way their D-line is playing.
And you brought that up this summer.
Yeah.
Like before the season.
And I said it last week.
Yeah.
When I thought we were going to talk. I'm like, I don't know, man. It doesn't seem like those coverages are married. I was specific, and I'm going to ask Means later on. Is there a problem or a are Knowles and Johnson disjointed? Right? Is Jim Knowles and Larry Johnson Sr. are they on the same page?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, man. Those guys are getting vertical in the run. It's like just the fundamentals of how Oregon cut them up,
diced them up a little bit. Yeah,
was not I'm telling you, like,
A little ominous for Ohio State.
yeah, you got out coached.
Yeah.
Like clearly over the same handful of things.
So what it reminded me of, as I'm remembering what you said last week, and I'm watching the game play out, is, and it's sort of the bizarro version of this, right? Is when Donnie Raiola's here, his first year, Mark Whipple's here as the offensive coordinator. The offensive coordinator and the line coach were not on the same page.
Yeah, you just can't.
And then you just flip it. The same thing can happen on defense, right?
100%.
We don't think about it a ton.
Yeah.
But if the D-line coach and the D coordinator or the secondary coach are not on the same page, it can look like that.
Yeah. So what's the first thing our head coach asked yesterday on the Zoom? He was traveling. Oh, that's right. He's going to soccer. But anyway, so he hops on the Zoom.
Mhm.
First of all, got cussed out because we didn't send him the link. Everybody thought he was traveling, though. So we're like,
Are we not doing this?
yeah. And what he does is he sends he sends screenshots of the blocking scheme.
Mhm.
Right? So we're like, oh, shoot. But he called Queen. He didn't call me. He's like, hey, man, send me the link. So when he hops on, there's a couple things we want to do because of the way that the prep plays.
Mhm.
He said, okay, well, how are we fitting behind that? What about DNC gap in terms of response? Like, he's already trying to mirror the front that we want to put them in.
Yeah.
And how do we fit behind it? That stuff matters. Right?
100%.
You saw Joe Burrow and on my Underdog Sports, higher or lower.
Mhm.
Do you know what Joe Burrow's long run was?
Mm,
Higher or lower?
I'm going to guess higher.
No. I'll give you the number.
Oh, the number. I thought, okay. What's the number?
17.5. I looked at that and I was like, why is that so high?
That seems really high.
Why is that so high?
Yeah. I would have guessed it was like 9.5.
And what do you go for, 50?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, playing man-to-man will do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
See all those guys just turning and running?
Yeah. It's like, oh, hey, I'm going to go do that then.
Yeah, so sometimes, but I see why you play man-to-man against a guy that's not going to scramble.
Yeah.
Sometimes I cringe playing man-to-man against quarterbacks that can, like,
100%.
Like, yeah, we'll be very selective about when we play man-to-man with Caniglio this week, right?
100
Like,
sure.
yeah, dude can run.
Yeah.
So it's like, but anyway, I said, like, that stuff has to matter. And Oregon was super intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah, is incredible.
Weird question here, and not to overreact. If you had to choose, all else being equal, talent, everything else.
Yeah.
You taking Lanning or Day?
Lanning.
Yeah.
Lanning's beat Day twice.
I get that. But just you look at how their program operates, how he coaches,
I'm
you're taking Lanning.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would.
I'm taking Lanning.
But it is kind of funny because it goes back to the said, like, Day's won a lot.
I just like listening to him better.
Yes. He meets my ear much better than Day
Like
does.
I think when I listen to Lanning, I believe what he says.
Yeah.
I don't get that vibe with Day.
I don't know if it's a confidence thing. Lanning comes off way more confident than Day does.
So, I mean, advantage Chip Kelly over Knowles, or
I guess. I mean, Chip Kelly's really good at what he does. At that part of what he does. Like, I don't think he was super interested in doing the head coaching thing anymore, obviously. But I don't know that anybody's ever questioned that part of his coaching acumen. I think they questioned his desire to the recruiting and the transfer portal and NIL and all that kind of stuff. But if you thought Chip Kelly couldn't coach offense anymore, then UCLA was pretty good the last few years offensively.
they can run the ball.
And they kind of hammered you a little bit.
Oh, they can run the ball.
They'd probably be better off this year with Chip Kelly as their head coach, stylistically, than they are right now. But I did kind of want to get a little bit more into Big Ten here a little bit because,
why?
Well, you know how you
seems like there were some big games.
You know how you love the transitive property?
Yes,
it's your favorite thing in the world.
It is my favorite.
Well,
I love the transitive property.
I feel like we do that a lot when we're about to see a game play out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, Indiana beat this team by this much, and Nebraska beat this team by this much, so Indiana's going to beat Nebraska and whatever, right? But it kind of works in reverse too, or it kind of doesn't work in reverse too, right? So we're watching Illinois and Purdue this weekend, okay? So should we feel better about Purdue and that win because they held tight with Illinois, or should we feel worse about the Illinois loss because they almost lost to Purdue?
I still think we know who Illinois is.
I do too, for the most part.
So I'm okay. I don't.
But people were full on melting down over that
So
game.
much has changed, though.
Yeah.
Right. I think the one thing that the fans can sometimes struggle with is emotion.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I would say that's the number one thing fans struggle with is emotion and managing the emotions.
And, I was talking to Coach Huffman yesterday morning.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about us versus when we played them versus, because he's got film now because we play a couple common opponents. And I said, yeah, we're doing X, Y. We're getting better, right? Because we had to replace, 9 of 11 starters or whatever. Yeah. I said, but don't undersell emotion in a game. Like, it's just, especially the younger you are, the more it can fluctuate.
Yeah,
and certain teams elicit
different emotions.
Yeah, different emotions.
Well, especially, not to keep bringing stuff up, but especially when there's other stuff going on around the game, right? Especially when there's previous animosity or somebody said something or whatever, right? Like that all kind of factors into that. And I don't know, as fans, we react to it. I don't know that we give enough credit to the fact that players are also they're 18 to 22-year-olds. They're going to have an emotional reaction as well.
I think Purdue, Illinois, Indiana, and Illinois, and Northwestern all see it differently with one another.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that looked like the same Northwestern team we saw play Indiana for 3 quarters?
No.
So, some of that stuff, it's hard. I didn't get into it like that. I was surprised that Purdue could score 49 on anybody.
I agree.
But
they also, I don't know how much this matters, they also had a different quarterback in for a lot of that game.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Let's
be honest.
You want to go back to last year when I didn't think Hudson Card was very good?
No, but do you want to go back to last year when I said he might be the best spot of all the Big Ten quarterbacks that transferred the same year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I said that.
You did say that. And I was like, I just don't think he's very good.
Whoopsie. What are you laughing at? Huh?
Well,
so
you're probably right on that.
So we're not worried about Illinois and Purdue.
No.
Are we worried about Rutgers getting their head kicked in?
No.
Because other people were a bit concerned.
Guys and gals can't play. It happens.
We're just gonna forget the fact about the 30-mile-an-hour swirling, gusting winds during that game too.
It happens.
But Nebraska only scored 14 on them, DB.
Oh, Rutgers looked pretty pedestrian in some stretches.
Yeah.
But again, I like Monangai. You guys loved him.
Who's you guys?
Oh.
Who's you guys? I'm the one out here getting in fights on Twitter because people think Monangai is going to be the reason Nebraska loses the game. And I go, why? Because Washington can't tackle?
Yeah, how about that one? Again, so that's just going to be who Washington is, though.
Yeah.
They might be okay from the 30 to the 30, but once they cross that thing, it is a total crapshoot.
Yeah, it is a struggle bus.
Because I remember we were on.
So Rutgers' vaunted red zone defense might have had more to do with Washington than it did Rutgers?
Yeah, I think we said that.
Maybe a little bit. Yeah. I'm just, circling back, making sure people know.
So I saw a stat, and this might have been one-on-one with Coach Parker. We were just talking because it seemed like I was up there a fair amount. But he's a big statistics guy.
Mm-hmm.
And they only blitz. This was, I think, was 22-23 season. Because it would have been last year we were there. I think they only blitz is roughly 26% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But of that 26%, 80 of it came inside when their
opponent was in the red
zone.
Yeah.
And I just was like, oh, that's interesting. So they're very, very good. They can.
Well, it's smart too, right? Because
it's just, I love watching that stuff.
Yeah.
And apparently, I don't know, man. It seemed like when it was 20-10 at the half, I was like, how in the world do they only have 10 points? That's what I was thinking.
Kind of like we were all week when they play Rutgers.
Now, Higgins is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
He's top 5 defensive players in the country.
I mean, I'm not going to argue on that.
He's
ridiculous.
God, his closing speed. And he's so explosive. But anyway, I didn't know whether it was like a matter of time or it was inevitable that they were living on borrowed time.
Yeah.
It turned out to be the latter.
Yeah.
But I was a little surprised at how easily they controlled the second half. And I don't think Washington quit necessarily as much as it's hard to play that style against that style multiple weeks in a row.
Well, especially when
you started to see what was happening up front, and I was like, I think it wore down Rutgers.
Especially when you're not used to it, right?
I did you see Rutgers physically? Like,
yeah.
They were melting down.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh. And somebody asked me, was it TK? Somebody asked me about the Nebraska effect. I think opponents are 1-5 or 1.
I think Colorado's the only team to have won after playing Nebraska. I believe that's correct.
So maybe that's something, but like they got, I don't know.
I mean, it wouldn't. I think Nebraska's a really difficult team physically to play.
Do you know who I don't think was the better team in one?
Who's that?
Penn State didn't play like the better team.
No, they didn't. That felt to me. Maybe I'm
like a giveaway.
It felt like USC gave it away.
Yeah.
It felt like they kind of tingled it down their leg.
I'm like
I'm watching that game and I'm still trying to figure out, okay, how did Penn State get back in this thing?
I know.
Down a couple scores.
Yeah.
Felt like USC totally had everything in control. Yeah. But again, I don't know that USC physically can hold up, which it was my concern about them in the offseason. I don't know that they can hold up multiple weeks in a row in the Big Ten. At this point, I don't think they've got the makeup for it right now. Physically, I'm not questioning like desire or want to. Physically, I don't think they're there.
So, in college is different than pros, but there were 2 lines that I said, man, these just don't make sense. One of them, Vegas clearly needed the public to have money to play with for this week because they gave that game away. This was. Would I tell you that I would have made the Lions and Cowboys game?
8.5.
Yeah. Minimum.
Yeah.
Says 3.5. I said, man, they're begging you to take the Lions. You probably should take Dallas. Right? That was no bueno. But how was Pittsburgh, the Panthers, only 3.5 to Cal?
That's the other one we said stunk.
I'm like,
and we're texting.
Cal's going to win that game.
And we're texting about that real time. And like, man, they just must not think Pitt's very good. Or I said they must not think
Pitt's
very
you
good.
Go, do we know how good Pitt is?
And they're like, maybe not. And I go, well, they were 5-0 and they were only ranked 22. They must not think they're that good.
It's
weird.
Winning it's tough.
And then what's that end up being? 2-point game?
Oh yeah, weird.
Cal covered.
Winning is hard
in Vegas and on the football field.
I mean, is K-State good?
Maybe Colorado's good. Maybe they're both okay.
I know quietly who's pretty good.
Who's that?
Iowa State.
We were trying to tell them last week.
Iowa State's pretty okay.
Top 10 Iowa State. We'll get into some NFL, more college football coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
He's ready. Put down to win the game. The kick is up. The kick by Barker is good. The Nittany Lions in overtime win it. What a gutsy performance in California today.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. You can catch us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. Coming up on the show today, we've got Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. We've got Will Backus covering college football for CBS Sports, and we will wrap up the show with Stephen Means, who covers Ohio State for Cleveland.com.
It's funny listening to those highlights. Penn State won a game in overtime in which Aller threw the ball to the other team 3 times.
Yeah, that's not great.
They ran the ball for less than 4 yards a carry.
Also not good.
I mean, Katron Allen had 56 yards rushing.
Yeah.
And they won.
They did. I still am not totally sure how.
I have to go. There were some crazy games, but it was a heck of a weekend.
It was. And I was a little concerned it wasn't going to live up to the hype.
No, it did.
And it absolutely did, especially the late window. The late window was phenomenal.
It did.
And, I mean, we talked about Oregon, Ohio State a little bit. We'll talk about some more with Stephen Means at the end of the show. But The one that I'm sitting here wondering about, I think maybe more than the rest of them, is Florida, Tennessee.
Oh, no. Oh,
because
you're going to get into the rank. Okay.
Because I don't know that I think either team is who we think they are or who the general public thinks they are.
Florida has good losses.
Florida, I think, might be okay. Their only losses are Miami, currently number 6 and undefeated. Texas A&M, currently number 14. Only lost to a pretty good Notre Dame team. And Tennessee, who is number 11 and who we think is pretty good.
I don't.
Well, other people think is pretty good. The ratings tell you. So those are your 3 losses on the season. Florida, 2 of those, by the way, are one possession. The only one they didn't play well was Miami at the start of the year. 2 of those are one possession. Some of those are with a backup quarterback.
They can stop showing this Hutchinson play at any time on television.
Yeah, that's totally unnecessary, ESPN. We can just skip right over that.
Jeez.
And then Tennessee, on the other hand, struggles with an Oklahoma team I don't think is very good. Struggles with a Florida team that nobody else thinks is very good.
Sometimes I say this, and I'm being facetious, but I wasn't when I said, how's Oklahoma going to score?
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of it for me is...
You know what's crazy, though?
Yeah.
And I've talked about Texas's talent.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't like the way they play.
I don't really either. I'm not so... But I'm not a Sarkisian guy.
No, you're gonna get your pH bound. You'll get your litmus test this week.
Like, I am not a Sarkisian guy.
You'll see.
Is
Georgia second half Georgia against Bama? Because apparently Bama can't play D.
Yeah.
So
I thought they were going to lose that game.
Bama?
I thought they were going to lose that game.
Yeah, I was. So I watched that game standing on my deck because Brett hadn't come to see me yet, but I just was like dialed in. First of all, it was quiet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably 4 from here to maybe this wall, just standing with my arms folded, watching the TV outside.
Yeah,
I don't know why I didn't sit down. I
do that. You do that not just you, but like I do that sometimes too, where I'm kind of like trying to figure out if I want to sit down and I just end up standing there for like a half hour just watching something.
I could not for the life of me figure out what Alabama was trying to do defensively.
I don't think they could figure it out either.
I'm like, they can't get vertical on you.
Yeah.
Like when teams can't throw the ball over your head, you should be allowed to do certain things defensively.
100%.
And
South Carolina's not beating you over the top.
When Mike almost lost his mind when they got the onside kickback.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's like looking through the screen door, wondering why I'm being a weirdo. I'm like, they just got this onside kickback.
Yeah.
If Bama loses this game, your boy DeBoer may not have made it out of Tuscaloosa.
I know.
He may not have made it out of Tuscaloosa.
And that's why I didn't want him to take the job. Like, full disclosure, I love DeBoer. Whoever followed Saban is getting fired.
Oh, it's a little premature. They still only have the one loss.
No, I'm not saying this year. But whoever followed Saban is going to get fired because they're not going to be Saban. Yeah. Like, that is inevitable.
No, I'm with you.
The guy that followed Saban, especially because he didn't have like the Bobby Bowden like trickle down, you know?
Oh, the
like
family?
The fading at the end, right? Like Florida State was bad the last 5 to 7 years that Bowden was there, right? So Jimbo was in a position where people were ready for Bowden to leave. No one was ready for Saban to leave.
Hey, should I ask about this team again?
Always.
You ready?
Yeah.
Is Clemson pretty good?
I still don't know. Honest to God, I don't.
Okay.
I still don't know.
They look pretty good to me.
They're better than I thought they were. 100%.
Okay.
Better than I thought they were. I don't know how good they are.
All right, now I'll ask this one.
Because here's the thing. You brought this up over the break, so I'm going to give you credit. They were ranked 21 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
They're 10 now. A lot of that is because a lot of teams have lost.
No, I know. Listen, but here, okay.
So I think they're better than they are. I don't know if they're 10.
So I've asked this question 3 weeks in a row. Here's number 4.
All right, I'm ready.
Who are you taking of the one lossers? Clemson, Notre Dame, or A&M?
I think I've given the same answer all 4 weeks. Notre Dame.
Okay.
I think I'm taking Notre Dame.
Leonard is playing better.
He is playing better. I'm a Freeman guy. Out of those three coaches.
I do love Freeman.
Out of those three coaches, I'm 100% taking Freeman. I don't have as good of a...
I know you don't like
I'm not
Sweeney.
a Dabo guy.
I know you don't like Sweeney.
I don't like... You could give me almost any three coaches in the country, and Dabo's last.
Wow, that's tough. Ryan Day?
Oh, 100% taking Ryan Day over Dabo.
You listen to his pressers?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan.
I got to figure out. I don't want to be that guy in like another market whose team has not had nary the success that Day has. But I do need to find a way to ask Means, are we cool with the accountability at pressers?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What do you mean?
I just didn't hear like sometimes you listen to a presser and it's like, oh, okay, that they learn. Like that would be a teachable moment.
Mm-hmm. Didn't get that vibe? Yeah.
I didn't.
I struggle sometimes because there is an in-market versus out-of-market thing there where it's okay.
There is. I should have explained it better a couple weeks ago when I first brought it up, but there's a disconnect with Ohio State on defense. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I tried to walk through it, but it's not like it wasn't that big of a deal yet. It was just something that I'm kind of
noticing
on the national scene.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, man.
Seems a little disjointed.
So they have better players than Oregon.
Yeah. They have better players than almost everybody.
Well, I mean, Oregon's
really talented. Yeah, don't get me wrong.
Oregon has some fellas now.
But Ohio State's more talented than almost everybody.
Yeah. That's why I put Oregon's D-line ahead of Oregon and Michigan's D-line ahead of
Ohio
State's when I did the D-line ranking.
You were a little skeptical about the...
Well, my man TK wasn't happy with me, but I'm like, hey, man, that's Ohio State. They don't have the best D-line in the Big Ten.
No.
I still think it belongs to Michigan. Oregon is right there. And, I don't know where I take them. But our D-line is in the discussion.
Where are you putting Nebraska?
It's in the discussion.
Because I know if you go by like star rankings and draft grades and all that kind of stuff, Nebraska's D-line isn't going to look like Ohio State.
Ohio State, go look at the mock draft for the first 3 rounds.
No, it's bonkers.
It's incredible.
It looks
it
looks like Georgia and Alabama.
But it's not to say like, guys like Burke who are highly rated, like he struggled Saturday night. So that can happen.
That's what I was going to say is like if you take recruiting rankings and draft grades, Nebraska's not going to compare to Ohio State at this point in time. But if you're just watching tape and how they've played,
you know what I would
you're going to have a really hard time taking Ohio State.
So I have to be careful because I've been on both sides of this. So I'm not going to say it as simple as, well, I'd like to see us with their players, because there is something to.
Mm-hmm.
There is definitely something to getting certain players to play within your culture. They may be one thing someplace else, and they're
100%.
So I don't want to just say, "Oh, hey, give White,
just can't drag and drop over here,
Dvorak and Butler, 5 stars," because it still has to fit within
what you're trying to do,
the mental makeup of how they want to play, because that's part of their success.
Mm-hmm.
Like part of the success that you see from Nebraska is their temperament towards being coached.
Yep.
But it is interesting.
And make no mistake, there are, and I really like this defense, I really like Nebraska's players, there are more highly talented versions of those guys out there that are coming down the pipe for Nebraska.
I hope so.
I mean,
that's the goal, right?
You see the guys coming on campus quite a bit. It certainly seems that way. SCB, I'm Ravi Lulla. We'll have more Hurrdat Sports coming up next.
We will be back. be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Hurts again in the gun. He's back. He's looking. He fires. Wide open. Smith. 35, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Devontae Smith.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio as we wrap up hour number 1 on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla. We're trying to get all caught up on a crazy weekend of college and NFL. Not as crazy as go ahead.
I was going to say, do you know who you'd put in the college football playoffs? Could you get to 12?
I could get to 12. I wouldn't feel great. I mean, there's some teams in there that, I could feel okay about 12, I think. There's some teams that are outside the top 12 that I think are pretty good.
Is Iowa State in or out?
I'm putting Iowa State in.
Is Indiana in or out?
Out.
Is Boise in or out?
I think in because they have to be.
Is Bama in or out?
Out.
I think they are for me too.
I think A&M's in.
Their schedule is, dare I say, I thought you hate talking about schedules. A&M does have a favorable schedule
manageable
on paper.
Yeah. I think Notre Dame's in for me.
So were you surprised to see Texas such a big fave over Georgia?
Not really, because Georgia hasn't played great the last few weeks. I know they played great the second half against Bama.
But apparently that's been devalued.
Because now Bama.
Because Pavia is still scoring.
Pavia is still scoring. They very easily could have lost that game to South Carolina. You look at, okay, Georgia's got that Kentucky game. Then
I told you Kentucky's good.
They are good. But we're not going to look at Kentucky and give them credit for that.
Okay.
In Georgia, right? Like, that's just not how we're going to look at that game.
Well, do you have a turd in your pocket?
I try not to.
You can. They may not give Kentucky credit.
I'm saying
you can do whatever you want.
The royal we, as like a public, we're not going to look at that game and be like, oh, we should give Kentucky credit, not downgrade Georgia.
Like Lugo and Bobby Witt Jr., or is it #TooSoonRoyal?
#TooSoon.
Okay.
We got too many Royals friends out there.
Yeah, I felt bad for my guys.
But we're not going to look at that, and then the Mississippi State score is more concerning to me than the Kentucky one.
Well, Mississippi State just played somebody tough couple weeks ago.
I can't get the Toledo ass whooping out of my head.
Well,
I can't do it.
I told you, different teams elicit different emotions.
I understand that.
And the teams that can balance that are the teams that you see play well.
I understand that. I'm not even saying I'm right. I'm just saying I can't get it out of my head. So when I look at Mississippi State play Georgia close, I go, that's the team that got their head beat in by Toledo.
I was at it's the sweet meat shop on don't even think about it, Shane. The place where you get good cuts of meat on 90th and Center.
90th and Center.
I know. Fairway.
Oh, okay.
Just the meat part.
Yeah.
Was in there the other day, and the guy Saturday, and the guy goes, "Hey, is that big one last night?" Well, he's like, "Yeah, that was an ass whipping," or something like that. He said, and I was like, "Yeah," and he goes, "Well, do you see Prep lost to Fremont? Like, what?" I said, don't even say it. I said, do you know the difference? Do you know the difference between us and going into this week from last week? Is his prep.
Yeah.
It's all you need to, like,
all bets are off.
You don't worry about stuff like that because certain
teams elicit a certain reaction.
So, like that's what I'm saying in the SEC. It's like,
no, I get it. I do.
Are you sure?
I do get it, but there's
Are
also
you sure?
There's a difference between I know this factually and not being able to purge what I've witnessed out of my head. Like, I can know this is true and still be like, man, that's tough to unsee when I'm thinking about what this team is in the big picture.
Okay, but not if you like the team. That's not true.
No, even if I like the team.
No, knock it off.
No.
Knock it off.
Oh, who do I like that I don't do that with?
Oh, you don't do it with Nebraska.
Sure I do. Sure I do. I just know more.
Did you not watch the second half against Rutgers and feel some type of way? But you're willing to dismiss it.
I don't think dismiss is the right term.
Okay, well, what is it?
Well, I don't know.
Okay. Let's keep it 100.
Here's the thing about Nebraska, though, because that same principle of I can't unsee or I can't unhear things applies to stuff off the field, too. And I can't unsee or unhear the things I believe about this coaching staff either. So when I think about Nebraska,
Ravi here for all in on the coaching staff.
100%.
Yeah, me too.
100%. And I don't feel that way about most other coaching staffs around the country. Now, obviously, I've got
You feel that way about Signetti. That's what you told me on Saturday.
I don't think that's at all true. You're just making up hellacious lies over here.
Is it hellacious or salacious? Well, both? Could it be both?
Both. I think
that's not really salacious though, but it would be hellacious. Hellacious is like when it's like
egregious.
Way to the old, to the.
Salacious is more like, ooh, that's spicy. Yeah. No, I listen. Signetti's a good coach. I don't look at him and think, infallible. And I don't look at anybody and think they're infallible. But I don't look at him with a.
You better Google him.
He's won a lot. I don't know if you know this.
I'm gonna really try to keep my emotions down.
Yeah,
I am. I promise myself that I wake up with kind of goals for the week. I am not going to be a sarcastic prick when it comes to Indiana all week. I'm going to respect the hustle, and I'm going to be professional.
I can respect that he's a good coach and still be like, yeah, I don't think Indiana has the foot speed on defense to make this work.
So, we'll get into that as the week wears on, but they are a 6.5-point favorite, so people do think they're pretty good.
Some people do, yeah. Right. And I get it. Listen, they're 6-0. They're top 20 team in the country. I get it. I don't know that I don't know that in most situations, and we'll go coaches poll here, the gap between 18 and 25 is a touchdown.
Yeah.
In terms of rankings, right? You're usually not getting a touchdown on that game. So that's a little weird to me.
I will be, and I kind of gave the precursor last week, but there are a couple things I will be curious to see. One of them is keeping Nebraska in front of this defense when Indiana does not have the ball.
And I'm not.
They're going to have to. I'll be curious to see the coverage matchup and how well they run, like being fleet of foot.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't think they're super quick on their back end.
A little undersized outside too.
Which that's a bad combination. Slow and small is not what you want in a football team.
I'm not going to go as far as to say slow.
Lack of fleet of foot is slow there, DB. I don't mean to use the old decoder ring on you here, but
Is that a Christmas story?
I think so, yeah.
Gotta drink your Oval
I
tea?
hate that movie
Oh,
so much.
hot take.
I think it's terrible.
I think that take sucks.
Listen, I know everybody else loves that movie. I hate that movie.
I'm shocked. The wet blanket didn't like it.
I'm a big Elf guy. I like Elf. I like Christmas movies.
So
Hot take.
yeah, exactly. I want to play that clip
Which one?
that DeMarina sent.
You can send it to Shano. He'll get it in the
Can I
system.
send it from here
Yeah, I think so. Send it to his Twitter DMs.
to Shane's?
Yeah, so he can bring it up on his computer, and you should be able to get it.
I was very glad my buddy Matty D sent that.
Oh, he's your buddy now?
So I think I did meet him independently of you.
Probably.
No, we can share him. That's
Sure.
fine.
Yeah.
Bro, I love you, Damon, because I swear you read my notebooks.
See?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
DB's great.
And full disclosure, I championed that dude from the jump.
I love DeMarinis. That's my guy.
I mean, we're going back some years.
DeMarinis.
And I used to tell Shane's a little narrow behind. I'm like, hey, man, we need to talk to Matty DeMarinis because not only can we talk hoops and all things.
Oh, you can talk everything.
We can talk comic. Like, yeah,
I
like range, man.
Yeah. Matty DeMarinis is him and Padilla are like my OGs.
Yeah, Padilla said something snarky to me yesterday. I almost canceled him.
What do you say?
He's got such a smart mouth.
He does. Yeah.
God,
people don't realize how snarky he is.
It's incredible
because he's a little silent assassin in there.
And he keeps receipts.
Yeah.
So I said something to him a couple of weeks ago, just in passing. And so we were talking about doing NEB preps this week, which is going to be on Tuesday and not today. Recap high school. And at the very end, we're talking, and he goes, I'll try to laugh at your jokes this time. Like, just didn't have anything to do with anything. Just kind of slid it in from a couple of weeks ago.
You low-key got to have some thick skin if you're going to be friends with Padilla. Because he'll knife you just on the way by.
Yeah. Like, damn, JP. I think I did laugh, though. But I have a question about your playoff teams in or out.
All right, let's do it.
So you put Clemson in.
I think I have to, yeah.
Did you put Notre Dame in?
Notre Dame's in for me.
Did you put Boise in?
I don't know if I'm putting Clemson in.
Gets tricky.
I think I have to put Miami in, and that means Clemson's out because I don't think ACC's getting 2.
Who's the one?
Overall?
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I think it has to be Texas. I don't feel great about it.
I would have listened to an Oregon discussion.
They've got the best win.
I would have listened to an Oregon discussion.
They've got the best win for sure, but if I'm doing what I think is going to happen versus what I would do, what I think is going to happen is the SEC team is going to get the number 1 seed. I just think that's going to happen. I think Oregon at this point of the season is a better resume than Texas. So if I'm doing it right now and it's me, I go Oregon. If I'm trying to project what the committee does, I think it's Texas.
You confident
about what?
And I'll let you
in general.
I'll let you. Yeah, Lord knows that's the truth. And I'll let you change as the week goes on.
Okay.
Are you confident in Texas beating Georgia?
Not as confident as.
But you don't even think Georgia's that good.
No, I said it doesn't seem like Georgia's that good to other people.
Oh my God!
Because you asked about the line. So that's why I was giving the explanation on why the line's what it is.
Okay.
Because of the perception of how Georgia's been playing. We got Sam McKewon coming up next.
We will be back. be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World-Herald, Sam McKewon.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Sam McKewon.
We're gonna throw the ball, and you just stand back there and throw it where you want to go. That kind of thing.
Sam McKewon.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam McKewon.
Crowd making some noise here in Lincoln. Kellyak Manis gets lined up. Huskers back away. Snap back. Kellyak Manis going to throw it. Being flushed out of the pocket, rolling downfield, looking, throw. Pass intercepted. Picked off by Huskers at the 27-yard line. Marquise Buford with an INT. And Huskers will take over at their own 27-yard line.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're joined now by Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, how are you this morning?
Good. How are you guys today?
I'm good. When you got up to watch the brilliance of, now we like him again, Caleb Williams, was there a breakfast in London's honor? Did you just go with some scones? What did we get up with to watch Jacksonville and Chicago?
Well, I didn't watch all of it because I had lots of things to do too. But we brought it in with bacon and chocolate chip muffins.
Oh, nice. Okay,
that's not a very traditional English breakfast, Sam.
Hey, so
No.
So we
didn't have strawberries and cream. I'm sorry.
No. Do we like Caleb Williams again, or like where are we as the world turns with Caleb Williams?
Always did. Always have liked him. I think Bear fans who have buyer's remorse over Fields just need to understand that Caleb Williams is a very different player. I think he's got a different level of motivation and just I don't even know what the right word is. I think the physical talents of Justin Fields may be equal to Caleb Williams, but there's just something about Fields that probably needed to be with the Steelers and not the Bears. And I think Caleb Williams honestly is the opposite. I think he's probably better suited for a franchise like the Bears, where he needs to he's going to have to generate a lot of the energy on his own. Whereas in the Steelers, they have such a good franchise. I think Fields probably fits in better there. But Fields just wasn't the kind of leader that the Bears needed, and Caleb Williams will be. He's not going to be perfect, and he's got a little bit of Aaron Rodgers in him, but he will be a fighter. He will battle to help that team get better. And of course, they're in the toughest league in the NFL, the toughest division in the NFL. So naturally, the Bears get good, and everybody else in the division is even better.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because every time I watch Caleb Williams drop back, I either cry or I do a quick glance to see if there's a penalty, because he runs around like a weirdo back there and draws a lot of holding calls. But I'm not mad at Justin Fields. It's okay. Well, actually I am, but they got to win.
Yeah. So now you get to watch Fields, and again, I think he's playing better than he probably ever did with the Bears. But the thing about Fields is that, man, he holds on to the ball.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
Not sure what he's doing. I don't know. I really don't know why he's holding on to the ball so long all the time. But.
Let me ask you something here, Sam, because this weekend is it's like exhibit. I don't know. You'd run out of alphabets in the courtroom, so they probably go like exhibit AA of how difficult situational awareness and clock management and game management is. We see it in college. We see it in the pros. The more often you see higher level perceived coaches struggle with it, even guys like Andy Reid, until he kind of got Mahomes, and then still Mahomes is still kind of the eraser. Do you give more grace when you see these situations happen, considering you see them happen so frequently?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Mahomes is an interesting. Yeah.
I mean, did you watch college football this week? Was a mess with the clock.
It was. It was a challenging week for a lot of things. That and yeah. So you have the two games where USC and Ohio State mismanaged the clock, and
wow.
I'm not exactly sure what USC was trying to do. There might have been we don't want to give them a chance to score kind of thing. I don't really know. They screwed it up. Ohio State, that's a tough situation. I think, you're dealing with the emotion of the pass interference call, which you can call that, and they did, and the clock then running, and then you're trying to figure out a bunch of different things in that moment, and it's probably one of those moments that Ryan Day doesn't run into a lot, where he just has to trust that his kicker can go make a 56-yard field goal. They got a little worried. I think they got a little over worried about gaining a few yards, and they, that level of concern was evident when they're throwing the ball to Jeremiah Smith on that play. Like, once you get to the 30, you just got to run the football and try to put it in position and trust that your kicker can go out and make a kick. I know people, raked Zach Taylor over the coals for that, but that situation was different. Zach Taylor didn't have a clock that he was fighting. Ryan Day did, and they really should have just trusted their kicker to go out and make a kick, and he doesn't make it. But what they did is they put themselves out of field goal position, and they really didn't manage the clock right. It wasn't a Dak Prescott. I thought about tweeting it's another Dak Prescott, Mike McCarthy thing when they played the 49ers, but that wasn't accurate either.
I don't even think we should let Dable off the hook. It was second down. 44 yards isn't a chip shot.
Yeah.
That was what are you doing? What are you? I get you need 10 points somehow. But the thing that really aggravated me over that, Sam, is not only did he do it on second down, Joseph had been a little shaky. You still had another down to work with. And if you get the onside kick, you're in Hail Mary mode anyway. So what difference did it make if you had, like, take the time to score the touchdown? Like, if you didn't need 55 seconds if you're going to go Hail Mary mode to go get a touchdown. Like, it was just dumb.
Yep, I get that. That's certainly. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Brian Dable will have that job a lot longer. But
I'm just trying to win. I'm just trying to win another lunch from Ravi because we have a bet on Dable versus Sirianni. I gave him a mulligan last week. He's still sticking with. You're going with Sirianni still, right?
100%.
Yeah.
As he's shouting at fans
Sirianni again. As I said it for 3 weeks. He's the only guy that can win a game, and people say, "Is he closer to being fired?"
He's doing his best for me. I appreciate it.
Certainly the most overcovered division in the NFL is the NFC East, and it has not been they have not produced too many elite teams in the last 10 years. You know, there was a time when that's all you paid attention to because the Giants were great and the Eagles were in the Super Bowl and the Cowboys had Romo and Parcells and Washington was doing whatever it was doing. But that's not what it is now. I mean, the best division in the NFL is the NFC North. That's an adjustment for people, and people treat the AFC East the same way, and it's a terrible division, and the AFC West is the best division. So,
wait, the AFC West is not better than the AFC North.
Oh, I think so.
What? What? Because of the Browns? So. I mean, I'll see you the Raiders.
Are you saying Chargers are better than Bengals? Or the Broncos are better than Bengals?
The Raiders went and beat the Ravens, and the Chiefs beat the Ravens.
Yeah, that's not how. Ravens may be the Ravens may be the best team in football, Sam.
Maybe. Yep. There's regular season Ravens, and then there's playoffs.
Oh,
so,
he's not wrong, DB. He's not wrong, DB.
No,
I get it.
Happens, I don't know why, but there are teams that just refuse to blitz Lamar Jackson during the regular season. I certainly playing zone against him and letting him do whatever he wants is not a solution to anything. So I think the only way you can really play Lamar consistently is to bring pressure. And I think teams have gone to this like we're gonna sort of build a well around him and keep him in the pocket. I'm like, he's too good of a pocket passer.
Even when Mark Andrews was wide open on the sidelines, he had to wait for that ball like a punt. I mean, other teams probably score on that from 50 yards out. But I'm not a Lamar hater. I like Lamar. I think he's way good.
He's very good, and he's a pretty good pocket passer. And to me, the way to get him is really to blitz him and really to put a lot of pressure on him and sort of overwhelm him. And because you're not, to me, it's just too hard to do the other thing. And, with really good mobile quarterbacks, you kind of have to do that. And, their receivers are better though. People have gotten accustomed to the Ravens receivers being horrible, like year after year, not being good. And that is not the story with them now. They have good players, and we'll see what they do. Obviously, I'm not a huge Ravens fan, but I like their quarterback. I like him.
All right, let's fast forward. It's game week. It's a big one. I feel like this is one of the rare times where the storyline will not be about Nebraska going in a game like this, right? It'll be very Indiana-ish driven. You think that's good for Nebraska to be in this spot? They're already a 6-point underdog.
Yeah, I think it is a good spot. I think Nebraska needs to it will help to clarify Nebraska's focus. It will help that because they have to feel like they're going in as an underdog that will have no fans in the stadium. And they'll have a few. But that's how they have to go into this. They have to feel like they're going into an arena and just survival, them against the world.
Mm.
So there's some benefit here.
Yeah, they're good. They're good at that.
Everybody, yeah, I'm sure they are.
Oh, that's their coach, right? I mean, that's Coach Rule.
Yeah.
He'd rather fight than probably give you a hug. You know what I mean? Like he wants it probably chaotic.
Right, and so the Purdue game was challenging in that way because you knew you weren't going into a hostile atmosphere, overly hostile. And this week it's gonna. I mean, there's no question that their fans are going to be really juiced up, and Indiana's a good team. And Rule will probably say this today, Indiana's team knows how to win. Mm-hmm. That seems ironic, but a lot of the guys are from James Madison. So there are a bunch of guys he brought over that won a lot of football games. And so they don't know anything different. They know how to win, and Nebraska's still learning how. And so this is an important game. It's an opportunity for Nebraska to win. And again, I know kind of how the local media is about things of like, hey, it's year 2, and take a bowl and run with it and all the rest. But, people are going to look at Indiana and they're going to say, well, that's Indiana. And are you telling me that Indiana is better than Nebraska? Like that's the mindset's going to be. And Saturday is an opportunity to determine that. Like Nebraska fans are tired of falling behind the flavor of the week because Nebraska hasn't been the flavor of the week for a decade. Mm-hmm. And so like, Nebraska doesn't get to be the flavor of the week. Indiana's the flavor of the week. And if Indiana wins on Saturday, then, Indiana gets to be the fun story. And Nebraska, once again, gets to be the we're always building the runway team. And because Ohio State's going to be so pissed off, nobody's even going to know what to do when Ohio State goes out there on October 26th. So Nebraska's the next 2 weeks are going to be very, very challenging. And Nebraska has to be up for the challenge, and we'll see. The offense has to be up for the challenge, and we'll see how it goes.
I think Ohio State has bigger fish to fry, but that'll be for next week. Something's wrong, in my opinion, with their cohesiveness, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
That may be true, but I don't know that Nebraska can.
No, I get it. It's a separate.
Yeah. I'm not sure that Nebraska's the team to do that. Nebraska's going to have to play absolutely outstanding. Penn State can do that. I don't know if Nebraska can. Like, again, go back and watch a good portion of all 6 games. And Nebraska's offense just has to take it up a notch. The defense obviously needs to stay good, and the special teams is sort of a wild card, but the offense has to get better. The tests in the second half of the season are going to be way tougher, and Nebraska's offense cannot do what it did in the first half against Purdue or for the second half against Rutgers and expect that to be a good enough to win many games.
We're talking with Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, if there was a specific facet of the offense you'd like to see kick it up a notch, what would that be?
The skill players, not other than Raiola. Well, Raiola too, but again, we have to be – I'm always context. And the context is Dylan Raiola is a true freshman who's got 6 games in his career. And if you look at his numbers and you compare it to other true freshmen that played over the last 5, 6, 7 years, there's only a couple of guys ahead of him, and that's Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. They're really, like, the stats just don't suggest that he's behind the curve at all. It suggests that he's ahead of it, and that's because most of the blue-chip true freshmen don't go to schools like Nebraska. They go to schools where they can sit for a year, which he would have done at Georgia. But Nebraska didn't sit him. They played him right away. And at Oklahoma, Caleb Williams was pressed into action, and then Jaden Daniels went to Arizona State, another one of those schools where you don't sit. And so Raiola's ahead of the curve. You can't assume that he's going to become, I don't know, whomever over the next 6 weeks and just assume that. So I think your receivers have to continue to keep coming, and your running backs do too. You got to break more tackles, got to get open, got to make more plays. I think Nebraska's offensive line plays hard. They do. They do. They play hard. They try hard. They're not bad in pass protection. Asking that offensive line to be significantly better when you're playing Gunnar Gatula, who's doing this for the first time, just seems like a overreach to me. Maybe Micah Mazuka can get back into the starting lineup. I'm not exact. Damon probably knows more than I do about the whole dynamic between he's a backup, but whatever Rule's saying there is obviously between Rule and Mazuka. But I think Mazuka's a pretty good player, and hopefully he can get back in the starting lineup.
Sam, if we think that Nebraska's leaving points out on the field, which kind of was the consensus, right, over the last handful of weeks. This in the second, there, and we kind of agreed, and I've yet to ask you, do you agree that it's somewhere so far between 10 and 14 points? Higher or lower for you?
Yeah, those are fair numbers. 10
Okay.
or 14 is okay.
So if you just mentioned Raiola in 6 games, and Barney's played 6 games, and Gatula's still young, and Banks and Nair have played 6 games with this offense. Is it safe? Is it a reach? Do you feel comfortable saying, as time goes on, that number will come down, or with just experience and situational awareness, or the schedule, in your opinion, won't allow that to be the case?
That number could come down, and simultaneously Nebraska could score fewer points because the schedule is a little tougher on the back end. So
you're probably okay with scoring fewer points if you feel like you're not leaving them out there, right? Like that's a different feeling.
Right. It means you're controlling the clock and doing some of the things that you want to do. And even if you're scoring 24 points, maybe those are winning some games for you. Yeah, absolutely. There's an opportunity to do that. I think the thing that I'm kind of watching for, I'll give you an example. I know Penn State beat USC, and I appreciate everything that offensive coordinator's doing. But they had to run literally every stinking play in their playbook. And I credit them for doing that because they knew what they had to do to win that game. They knew what they had to do.
Sam, Allen ran for 56 yards. Aller threw the ball to the other team 3 times. Penn State ran for 118 yards.
Yeah.
And they won.
They won because they ran everything they could. But my point is that if you watch USC, and granted, they lost 3 games, and I get it. When I watch USC, I'm like, that offense makes internal sense to USC. You can tell that everybody on that field kind of knows what they're doing. Now, they didn't win the game, and they didn't execute the clock stuff, but when they run the ball, they know what they want to do when they run the ball, and when they throw it, the quarterback knows what he wants to do. It doesn't always work, but that's what I mean about, like, making sense. And I think Nebraska does a really nice job of scheming up plays that turn out to be really, really good. I think Satterfield's a good play designer, and he has a knack for calling a big play when you need it. I would love to see Nebraska settle more into, here are the set of plays we're going to do. This is who we're going to be. We're going to get really, really good at that, and Dylan's going to get really, really good at this. And then if we got to have a wrinkle off of that, we will. And so we'll see if Nebraska reaches that level of identity. To be honest with you, I haven't seen that identity often with Nebraska's offense, in the Frost era or in the Rule era. There's been a lot of pick a play, like, well, we got a big play for you, and it works sometimes, and it's valuable. But I would love to see Nebraska get just a core identity on offense. Like, here's what we're going to do, here's how we're going to run it, then we're going to do this off of this, and if it doesn't work, we're just going to go back and get better at that. And because we're gonna be who we're gonna be.
That's how I kind of feel when I watch them run like duo and stuff. Like I can see the pet plays. You know what I don't want to ask a leading question. Like I think I can see what they want to do. I do, especially in the run game. How about this? How about if you talk about leaving plays out on the field? How about if with a little more experience, Dylan gets rid of the ball, and I won't say takes a few more chances because that sounds like, he's out here riverboat gambling. But there are some pass plays, I think, that are out there to be made where I just think right now he's just valuing the football, which is okay for a young guy. But at some point, he'll cut those balls loose. Like, there's some give and take there, in my opinion. I think what Nebraska is trying to do versus what I think a young quarterback is willing to do.
Sure. And I think, a good example of maybe a growth curve would be what Drew Aller's doing at Penn State. Like, he made some mistakes, but, I think he has a much better sense of what he wants to do with the ball. And he's completing passes. And people talked about how he's thrown so few interceptions, Aller, that is. But a lot of times it's because he was holding on to the ball. And he wouldn't throw it into harm's way. And people who watch the sport a lot understand that, like, one of the special things about it, for example, a Mahomes, is he's willing. Good quarterbacking is throwing touchdowns. When you get to the NFL, touchdown passes is what matters more than completion percentage, or you got to throw touchdowns.
Yeah, I see it every week with Jordan Love, who throws more touchdown passes per game than any quarterback in the NFL. Any quarterback in the NFL per game, Jordan Love, 2.7. He threw 4 yesterday.
He likes to throw, and that's good. Like, that's part of what makes a quarterback good. And so Dylan's just got to keep getting there, where it's like you're willing to throw the pass because you trust your arm, and you're willing to do some of the things that you can do. And, again, we could rehash years and years of quarterbacking. There's obviously things that people wish that Nebraska didn't do or did do. You go back to 2015, and that was the first year of Mike Riley, and my goodness, they threw touchdowns, they threw interceptions, they did all kinds of crazy stuff that season. They generated a lot of yards.
I just think there's going to be this point where, with him, because Dylan is so talented, where instead of just, and it's not getting by. So hear my heart. It's like we're in a spot now where I can take this. I can take a chance. Yeah. Right now, I just think there's still a little.
They need to get there.
Well, it's a little fast. Kinda. Yeah. I don't know. We may not agree on that.
I think his learning curve needs to be respected, and it can't be all on him. They got to get a little bit better at the back, and the receivers, guys got to get open. They got to help him out a little bit, just a little bit.
That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, we appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Good stuff, Sam.
Take care.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back. Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, and we're brought to you by our friends at Union Omaha. Only one more chance to see Union Omaha this season. That's October 26th at Warner Park, 4 p.m., and it is Fan Appreciation Night. So make sure you get to unionomaha.com now, get those tickets early, and enjoy the final regular season match for Union Omaha. DB.
What up?
You want to get to Brian first? Or you want to get back into Dylan?
Yeah, let's get to Brian.
All right, Brian. He's apparently has some feelings about his Cowboys, which I can imagine after yesterday. What's up, Brian?
What's going on, Ravi?
How you doing, man?
Ravi,
What's going on, Damon?
I have to chill here if you go all in on Dallas because they did beat the Steelers, and I'm still trying to figure out how. I'm still mad about that, B. I'm still mad.
I know why you mad about that. You should be mad at that. It's like getting beat by a bunch of elderly people who roll around in wheelchairs. Okay? I understand that. I understand. Hey, just feel a little happiness for my 5-teamer they hit. You know, I like listening to you
that
guys.
Was incredible when I looked at that screen. Only you.
You know me as a sports fan a little bit, you know. I had to pick. I like listening to you guys when you say stuff. Then I was like, let me refute this. Like when certain person was on a different station and y'all made this one comment saying everybody was for this certain coach getting hired that just got fired before this coach. And I had to call in and say, stop saying that. Don't include me with you guys because I called the radio station and told you I wasn't ready for him. I was like, he could have gone to Florida. We could have got him in. You know you can get a girl at any time. Let her go ahead. Mess around. Let her go out to Florida. Florida ain't no big school. And if he would have made it down there, we could have took him. But as far as the Cowboys go, I think I told beginning of the year, I called out and said the Washington is going to win the division because the coaching situation and whatever little emotional stuff they got going on in Philly is going to derail them. And our coach or our owner, you could tell, didn't want to really do nothing this year anyway. He didn't pick up nobody new. I thought he was setting himself up for the draft. And that I saw out there yesterday, is despicable. What, we going back since, last year? 49ers put up, 40 on them? Every big team has put 40 on them.
Soft. Like, that's what I don't
Yeah,
get.
they so soft. They look softer than Kwame Brown playing center for the Lakers.
Wow.
He is soft.
Kwame
He
just
is
taking
so soft.
strays out here.
Wow.
Hey, man, I like my team, but I got to be truthful. You know me. I'm the one that told my child, hey, look, you probably want to be on the school books and get them grades up because I don't think your genetics is going to let you become a pro athlete. So I don't lie to myself. I don't lie to yourself. As soon as you admit the truth, the better. Right? But yeah, that is despicable what I saw out there. Soft, don't want to fight. Is that a Diggy Zua that's playing defensive tackle for me? The same with Diggy Zua about 6-7 years ago, and maybe 10 that people was hyping up that might come here?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. He can't stop the run. He can't stop the run. And Mozzie Smith, man, I will say that Michigan Lance was correct on that a few years ago, or last year when we drafted him. You know his team, even though I don't like them, but the Cowboys are pitiful.
Everybody's catching strays.
But one more I got to put on. Hey, Ravi, I was going to say this since you was rooting for the Royals, because you know I'm a Yankee fan. Somebody asked you if you was going to change your tune. No, I don't want you to change your tune. I want you to have your mouth wide open to kick this food that you going to eat from all that stuff you was talking. I don't want you to change your tune. I want your mouth lip stuck out while you're taking it. I don't want you to change. I want just admit that you don't like them so that I can be satisfied while you just sitting there watching them play. Hey, but they do got more time to make you ribs in Kansas City, though. They got a few people ain't got stuff to do. You can check out the baseball players. I'm sure they got their smokers going right now, so they're home getting ready to watch the Yankees play.
Hey, Brian.
All right, B.
The Yankees still suck, bro.
Hey, what? All right, buddy. Wow.
No, go ahead. What?
I was going to say, what do you think happens this week with Nebraska? I know you're a little nervous.
Hey, I am trying to break down the matchup, and I think if the defensive line is where the key is, if they can control their offensive line and cause havoc amongst the line, then I think we'll be fine.
All right.
If not, I think they'll run away with it.
Oh, well, I'm trying to get a feel for the fan base. I appreciate that, B. I think right now we're in fear mode.
Oh, I'm not.
Yeah,
that's a dub.
Generally speaking,
No, I agree. I think people are a little worried, a little concerned.
Yeah,
making Indiana out to be the boogeyman.
Another
boogeyman. You gotta be careful.
Baba Yaga.
Another bedtime story.
Still one of the greatest scenes in John Wick.
Baba Yaga.
Yes, indeed.
The boogeyman? No, that's who you called to kill the boogeyman.
Yeah, I'm not worried. I think there's a lot of tail tucking. A lot of our friends Richard Tucker out in the on the fan base this week. I'm not worried about it.
Oh, shoot. You
doing all right?
Yeah. Everybody just catching random strays. He's in Michigan last. I don't even like him.
Well,
you're dang right.
I like how he says just admit that I don't like the Yankees. Like, have you been listening this whole time? Yes, I don't like the Yankees. I have to like that. That's open information, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows I don't like the Yankees. I'm a Red Sox fan. Since the Red Sox aren't playing, the next best thing is rooting against the Yankees. That's what I have here.
Incredible.
And you have that a lot.
And the Yankees still suck. That's all we got here.
So I have my man Dan, Husker Dan.
Husker Dan?
I can't say his last name.
Husker Dan the man?
It's not even his last name. His screen name is I've showed it to you.
Amazing
before.
Daniel?
No. It's this one. Which I don't think you can really.
What do we got, Husker Dan? Oh yeah.
It's Husker that word.
Yeah.
I had to look it up years ago. So he's a big Yankees guy. He asked. I didn't see it till late, but we could have a potential wager.
You and him?
Yeah. Well, he's a Yanks guy.
Getting more lunches you're never gonna fill in on?
Yeah, we were supposed to go. So because he's capable, he was talking about restaurant recommendations.
Yeah.
And he said something about Casa Bovina in Lincoln. I was like, oh, we could hit them up for quote unquote lunch. That'd be a nice lunch date.
Are they even open for lunch?
No.
I don't think they're open for lunch.
No.
A lot of places. A lot of places like that aren't open.
I was
for
just
lunch.
trying to see what kind of wiggle room I had, what kind of grace I had.
Seeing what the budget was?
Yeah. Because we didn't specify. So that's a couple of lunches guys owe me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll let them know that they're never going to have to pay up.
Well, your boy owes me one.
Who?
Royals fan.
Oh, yeah.
Die hard Royals fan.
Yeah, you showed me that text.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to get that soon, though.
You going to get that one, too?
Yeah.
All right, let's get to Lance real quick because next segment I'm not taking any calls because I got to get to the Dylan Raiola thing.
Oh, the freshman phenom.
Yeah, so
you want to talk stats?
Yeah, we're going to talk stats because I think people need to chill. Lance, what's going on, bud?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Ooh, very, very subdued.
Good.
Well, what's up, Lance?
Silky smooth.
So
it's election. It's election season. He's dialed.
I don't dislike anyone, right? So I can't follow Brian up like that. But
let him cook.
Hey, that's what I was thinking that whole time.
Yeah.
But I want to chit chat a little bit about this last week. You guys had mentioned watching this Rutgers-Wisconsin game to kind of see where things are standing, and so as I'm watching Wisconsin just run all over Rutgers, it really made me a little more worried about what our prospects are at the back half of the year. Specifically, I'd like to know, you hit me with the complimentary football, Damon, and so my question for you is, when you talk complimentary football, I don't think there's a statistical category that we are in special teams where we're ranked above 80.
No, I know. It's not good. It's not good.
So I have a hard. I kind of want to know what your take is on that sort of style of football if you're not good on special teams.
So the great equalizer, if your special teams, especially where Nebraska hasn't been good, because I'm going to throw net punting out. I think there's a better punting team sans the blocks, which is more
snapping protection.
It's more execution than it is philosoph. We have to be really good in the red zone, Lance. Like that. That's going to be the thing. The pressure and scoring touchdowns in the red zone is heightened without your ability to put the ball through the uprights.
Lance, appreciate the call. We'll try and get more into kind of what you're talking about with complimentary football here in a little bit. Coming up next, though, got to get into the Dylan stuff that Sam was talking about because I think perception and reality need a little adjustment here. So we'll get to that coming up next year on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and we're brought to you by Team Jack Foundation. Make sure you get to teamjackfoundation.org to check out every way you can get involved, whether that's donating right there on the page, seeing what events they have coming up, or finding out how you can volunteer. TeamJackFoundation.org has you covered. They've raised over $13 million to date in finding better treatments and one day a cure for childhood brain cancer.
I have a question.
I'm ready.
Since everybody's just taking random shots at everybody.
I'm ready. We love taking shots.
So apparently you're going to owe your buddy, which is fine. You two love hanging out. So FSU, and he said this after game 2 that they wouldn't make a bowl game?
I think it was during the first half of game 2.
Okay. So they have Duke. That's at Durham.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a win or a loss?
I think they're all losses. They might go like 2-10. They're really bad.
Okay, so they have Duke, Miami, North Carolina, Notre Dame. Well, they're not losing to Charleston Southern.
I know, that's the 2. That's the second one.
And then at Florida.
Yeah, I think they're going to go like 2-10. I don't think there's 4 wins on that schedule.
That's incredible.
It is incredible.
And I know Joel said this maybe tongue-in-cheek,
mm-hmm.
but maybe not. Is SC going to go to a bowl game? They need 3 more wins. Do you want to know their schedule?
Yeah, let me get their schedule on the way out. I don't have it off the top of my head. I know they got Nebraska, and that's it.
So the next 2, okay. So they're at Maryland, who clearly
that should be a win.
Okay,
so that's 4.
They get at Rutgers,
win.
At Washington,
win. That's 6.
Home. Okay, so then Nebraska, UCLA, Notre Dame.
They'll beat UCLA, so 7. Which is, I had them 7 or 8 wins coming into the year.
Are you vibing with me on how Washington got their doors blown off at Iowa?
Vibing on you on how did it actually happen?
It didn't really. Ravi, they converted the same number of third downs, 5.
Mm-hmm.
Washington was 3 of 6 on 4th down. Now, I know what Washington fans are saying. Some of those, they probably should just be taking the points. Then you get behind and you go for it on 4th down anyway.
Sure.
They had the ball 9 more minutes than Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
35 to like 25 and some change.
Mm-hmm.
They had more total yards.
Yep.
Problem is, KJ went, what did he finish with? 21 for 170, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they were never in that game in the second half.
No.
And I'm like, how?
That is because that's not really how Iowa has typically won games.
Dude, McNamara threw for 100 yards.
Barely.
No,
I mean, barely.
Like 108 or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not. I mean, they only threw the ball 14 times the entire game.
Yeah, so he was like, what was he, 50? Was he 7 of 14?
8 of 14.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And that game was over like 4 minutes into the third quarter.
To be fair, Rodgers only threw for 195. And they threw it 35 times.
And he did turn it over twice.
Yeah. So, that's the -2.
It's just a weird team.
So here, like, this is the exact same game as the Rutgers game, except for they were -2 in turnovers. That's how you get that margin versus the Rutgers margin. That's it. This is the exact same game as the Rutgers game. But when they go -2 instead of staying even in turnovers, it ends up a blowout instead of a 3-point loss.
Yeah.
So that's I
could see that.
That's how I feel about it.
I could see that.
I do want to get to these because Sam said when we were talking to him at the top.
Are you mad at Sam?
No, I'm not mad at Sam. I want to make sure people understand what we're watching here.
Okay.
Because
I'm here for it.
I think there is, and justifiably so. It's like, yeah, we'd love to see Dylan maybe rip it a little bit more. We'd love to see him, kind of go out there and be a little bit more aggressive, take some more shots. I get it, right? Totally understand that. I want to give some context, though, because Sam said, hey, he's doing better than just about every true freshman quarterback in the last 5 to 7 years, except for Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. I want to give context here, right? So right now, Dylan Raiola is 67% completion, 1,358 yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 picks, okay? So you extrapolate that gives you, we're going to keep the completion percentage, 67%, 2,700 yards, 18 touchdowns, 6 picks, okay? Keep those numbers in your head. Caleb Williams, 1,670 yards, 62.5% completion, 18 touchdowns, 4 picks, okay? Not better. About exactly what he's on pace for, little worse in completion percentage. Jaden Daniels, 2,748 yards, 62% completion percentage, 17 touchdowns, 2 picks. I'm going to go for you a little bit further back, right? Because Trevor Lawrence, one of the better freshman quarterbacking seasons we'd ever seen. 2,600 yards, 65% completion, 24 touchdowns, 4 picks. A little higher in the touchdowns. Everything else is almost identical. Those are easily the 3 best true freshman seasons we've seen from this level of quarterback coming in.
Wait, did you include Lawrence?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you did. That's what you just said. I felt like I was having a Rodney Harrison moment last night on television.
Yeah?
Can you repeat the question again? The awkward pause. Dungy looks at him. Your boy Collinsworth looked at him. Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, those are the guys. I'm going to throw Drew Aller in here just for comparison.
Another 5-star.
Another 5-star. Had another really good year before that. Now, didn't start as a true freshman, but he started last year. Sub 60% completion percentage, 2,600 yards. Now he had the Gotti touchdown interception ratio, 25-2. But that's as a sophomore after having gotten 60 pass attempts as a true freshman.
So you're making my point.
My point is Dylan Raiola is.
My point is if you feel like they're leaving points on the field,
yeah,
he's only going to get better.
100%. The other point that I'm making here is I understand we want Dylan Raiola to be the finished product after 6 games.
Do you love the whole play 4-quarter football game, guys? Who do we think? I'm going to give you multiple cracks at it.
Okay.
Pick a team where you felt like you saw them play 4 quarters this weekend.
This last weekend?
Yeah. More or less than 5?
Less.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
but we want it though.
We were just talking.
We want it though.
Well, of course we do.
We want it.
We were just because even like Texas, I didn't think they played well in the first quarter.
They played well in almost the first half.
Or I didn't think they played that well in the third quarter. Obviously, Oregon was kind of up and down, hit and miss throughout the game. Although that's a good Penn State and USC only each about played a half.
It's pretty hard. That's my point.
It is really hard.
And I would like to know, and I'm not making fun. I just like, for clarity's sake, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the solutions business. I want to know what a full 4 quarters looks like. Like, because we throw it out there like, well, what's it look like?
Yeah.
What's playing a full 4 quarters game look like?
Does it look like, hey, we got a 28-point lead at halftime, let's cruise this thing home?
No, we know it's not that because we complained about that.
Well, I know it's not what we think it looks like, but is that a good 4-quarter football game?
I don't know. I would love to play with the lead in Bloomington. So I'd take it.
You want to get up 3-4 scores in Bloomington and just cruise that thing right on home?
Yep.
You feel okay about that?
Yep.
We'd be complaining about a 4-quarter football game about that?
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either. What about being up 33-0 at halftime against an overmatched opponent? 33-7 at halftime, whatever it is, against an overmatched opponent.
I'd take that too.
They take that too, and then just cruise that thing right on home. Nobody gets hurt. Everybody gets home.
Mm-hmm.
We cool? You cover the spread even?
Yeah.
We good there?
I'd take that.
You take that, right? What about
it's just I just don't think we know, but we say a lot of things.
Well, again, we're trying to come up with we've talked about this a lot this year. We're trying to come up with factual or evidence-based things to justify our feelings instead of just saying like, I wish they'd look a little bit better. Like, that's the one thing you appreciated after the Colorado game, right? It's like, man, I just wanted to stomp the life out of them.
When Joel Cole.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, and I can appreciate that. Because guess what? If I'm a football coach and I'm up 28-0, I don't care. As long as it doesn't feel like we lose control of the game. You ever felt like Nebraska lost control of that Colorado game?
No.
Not for a second.
Nope.
Not for a second. You know what that is? That's a W. Against a Colorado team that's better than we thought.
So can I just go through this little exercise with you again?
Sure.
Okay.
Purdue just put up 50 points almost on Illinois, by the way. And we look at it like, oh, how could we possibly have lost a team that gave up 50 points to Purdue? What if we look at it from the standpoint of Purdue could have played 8 quarters and not gotten to 14 points against Nebraska?
I'm going to give you the back half of the consensus playoff projection.
Okay.
So I'm going to start 11 on down.
Let's do it.
I'll go through 25, okay? Iowa State. They a good team?
I think so, yes.
Tennessee.
I'm undecided.
Indiana.
Undecided.
Boise.
Undecided.
A&M.
I think they're good.
Kansas State.
Undecided.
Ole Miss.
No.
Tulane.
No.
Missouri.
No.
UNLV.
No.
LSU.
No.
Army.
I mean, you know how I feel about my guy Todd Monken.
Navy.
Again, yes. I mean, it's for what they are.
SMU.
Yes, that's a good football team.
Utah.
No.
BYU.
Yes.
Pittsburgh.
No.
Iowa.
Undecided.
Okay, that's Nebraska's neighborhood.
Yeah. That's where they live. You have a lot of teams that when you live in this neighborhood, there's a lot. You're not going to look perfect. You're not going to look like.
We say a lot of things. I'm just not sure like we know what we're saying.
Especially for where Nebraska's at, right? From 15 to 25, 10 to 25, you get a lot of inconsistent football. None of those teams are perfect. And a couple of those teams have more losses than Nebraska. Just keep that in mind. Coming up next, we're going to talk some national college football with Will Backus from CBS Sports here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
And Clifford near side. Both throws back to Aller. Aller takes it, looks downfield, throws downfield. Warren, he reaches up in the end zone. He's there. He's got it. Touchdown, Penn State.
Turns, hands it to Weisner. Cuts up the middle, 40, 35. Trey still on his feet. Outside. Here goes Weisner. Say goodnight to this one. Trey Weisner in the end zone for the touchdown. How's that to make up for a fumble? 43 yards on a big rumble for 6.
Gabriel wants to go deep. He's got Taz. Down at the 10. Touchdown! Taz Johnson! A perfectly thrown ball from Dylan Gabriel. And Oregon ties it up. A kick away from taking the lead. 48 yards.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi. We're joined now by Will Backus, who covers college football for CBS Sports. Will, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great, gentlemen. How are y'all?
Oh, good, Will. Good.
What was the game you enjoyed the most this weekend?
I mean, I think it's really hard to get better than Oregon, Ohio State. You've got 2 national championship contenders showing off in, the first top 5 matchup in Autzen Stadium history. It was a back and forth game, a boxing match, super exciting. Dylan Gabriel put on an all-time performance, and this was after we had some questions about his ability to compete in the Big Ten because he had a really kind of lackluster start to Big Ten play with Oregon, and then he comes out and absolutely shreds what a lot of people thought was the best defense in the nation. It was just an awesome stage between 2 powerhouse teams, and the game absolutely delivered in terms of on-field product. So that was a joy to watch.
Well, do you have any more? I asked one of our beat writers earlier, well, after this weekend in particular, and it's like the 1,000,000th exhibit of this, but do you have a little bit more grace for situational awareness and clock management the more that we see what we think are quality coaches kind of struggle real time?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, clock management has been kind of a huge I guess, bugaboo this year. Like, I've seen a lot of coaches that have really struggled with it. Ryan Day, obviously against Oregon, and more specifically Will Howard, kind of not realizing the situation. I think that was just a guy trying to make a play, get his team in field goal range, and he slid just a fraction of a second too late, and that was a tough situation. But yeah,
Lincoln Riley definitely wants a mulligan.
Yeah, Lincoln Riley. That's been a consistent thing throughout his career, though. His late game coaching has not been great. Tennessee against Arkansas had some really poor clock management. It's kind of a constant thing for Mario Cristobal. He's been fine this year. They've obviously had some really clutch moments this year, so that's not been a problem for them. But yeah, like I think that's the one thing about most college coaches that they kind of consistently struggle with is just late game situations, understanding the clock, understanding what's going on. Even your high level coaches like your Ryan Days, I would call Lincoln Riley. I'd still call him a high level coach, although he's trending a little bit down. Those guys, they struggle with clock management. So I think it's just something that you kind of have to accept and be a little patient with. It's definitely not a complete product.
So we're close to it. So we pick it apart all the time. And I'll use Washington as the example because, I'm watching film, getting ready for the broadcast and the points they left on the field against Rutgers. And when I watched them do it again against Iowa, that more first downs, more total yards, same amount of third downs, 9 minutes more time of possession. Yet I never really felt like they were in that game. You see this sentiment now with the playoffs where coaches sometimes don't care as much about style points. It's more win and move on, kind of an NFL mentality. Do you also think that not taking points when points are available is now becoming a thing? Because we see that a ton in the NFL.
Yeah, I think, there's obviously been a big push towards
analytics.
There's a lot of coaches, that use analytics for those fourth down situations, and they've got really extensive charts where they calculate every possible situation they could be thrown in, scores, distance. I think you just take the point. I think a lot of times people overthink it. Obviously, it's situational. If you're down 8 points late in the fourth quarter and it's 4th and 3 from, the other team or from your own 48-yard line, you go for it. But most times, I would just take the point. I think a lot of teams have really beat themselves this year because they went for a fourth down early in the game where you're like, okay, I get the aggressiveness. But then later in the game, it comes back to bite them when they didn't get it. And a field goal could have, won them the game or given them a lead late. And it would have been an entirely different dynamic. And so, like I said, I think sometimes coaches tend to overthink it a little bit. They think that aggressive approach is the way to go. And I just take the point. And as for the survive and advance mindset, I think we're definitely seeing that a little bit. I don't know if I would say coaches are necessarily intentionally holding back, but I think there is a little bit less pressure to, throw everything you've got in those big games. Like, obviously, Ohio State, they lost to Oregon. They're going to be fine. Like, they're probably still going to go to the Big Ten championship game. I cannot possibly envision a 12-team playoff without them in the field. So it was a fun game. It was a huge loss. I think there were a lot of stakes in that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's definitely a little bit less pressure for teams that are in that upper echelon. That can still really secure.
Will, who do you think has flown more under the radar while being what I think is pretty good? Iowa State or BYU?
I'd say both. I think both are definitely flying under the radar. Maybe BYU a little bit, just because BYU's kind of come out of nowhere a little bit more. And they were picked to finish I think it was 14th in the Big 12 preseason poll. And so, for them to come out and be like, now they're storming their way to the Big 12 championship game, that's definitely a huge turnaround, especially since they're the only newer Big 12 school, at least that's come in the past couple of years, that's really kind of acclimating super well. Colorado's been fine. Arizona State's been surprisingly good.
Yeah.
But you're talking about BYU as a potential championship team, college football playoff team, and I think a lot of people probably wrote them off over the past few years. Post Zach Wilson, they haven't been kind of up there like you'd expect them to be. They've had a lot of quarterback troubles with the revolving door. They couldn't settle on a guy. And so, I think a lot of people really counted them out. I counted them out. I didn't think much of them coming into the year. I certainly did not think we'd be sitting here in October talking about them as a potential college football playoff team. And so, yeah, they're definitely under the radar. But, I think I picked them. I did an article recently where I kind of took a look at the conference championship games and projected where they sit, and I picked BYU to make it. And, I think they're a playoff team.
Who of the one-loss trendy teams that are moving up? I give you Clemson, Notre Dame, and Texas A&M. Two of those three have pretty favorable schedules. You can make the case all three, but in varying degrees. Who do you like to come out of that back end as the best one-loss team currently?
I think Clemson, and I say Clemson. Obviously, you mentioned the manageable schedule. The ACC overall is kind of down this year. You've got Clemson and Miami, like way up there. I'd say SMU kind of middle tier. And then just sitting here thinking about it now, the rest of the conference is kind of –
Don't sleep on Pitt. Tier. Don't sleep on Pitt.
Pitt too. Pitt's definitely there. They're undefeated. I'll give them that. But
they're the Indiana of the ACC.
I tell you what, that offense is pretty good though. I know they struggled against Cal, but that's a pretty good offense.
Yeah, Eli Holstein's been a revelation for them, and they've definitely got some weapons that I think people are kind of sleeping on. But yeah, like back to Clemson. Clemson has really impressed me since that Georgia loss. Obviously, the schedule hasn't been great. It's not been. They're not out here beating giants, but they have been absolutely taking it to every single opponent that they face. And I've been impressed with the offense. I think Cade Klubnik looks better than he ever has. I think he's starting to finally click in Garrett Riley's system. They're making the most of what they have. Phil Maffa is one of those traditional kind of bell cow running backs that they can just lean on to ground some yards out and get stuff done. And then Klubnik's making some big throws. So, the defense is going to be good. It's always going to be good. But the offense has super impressed me. And even adjusting for the level of competition, it looks like it's operating on a much higher level than it has. Outside of that Georgia game, it's Georgia, so most teams are going to have their worst games against Georgia. But, yeah, I've been impressed with Clemson.
We're talking with Will Backus from CBS Sports. Will, what game did you think taught you the most this weekend about a specific team?
That's a good question. Honestly, I would go back to Oregon. I think there were some serious questions about Oregon's physicality. Their offensive line hadn't looked great to start the year. They got a little bit better, over the past 3 games. But, you look at their schedule and it's like, well, they're not really playing anybody great. So you'd hope that a top 4 team's offensive line is able to assert itself against clearly overmatched opponents. Like I said, there were questions about Dylan Gabriel. He had 3 interceptions over Oregon's first two Big Ten games. 2 of those interceptions were in the red zone. I know that he graded out really poorly over the first month of Oregon's schedule. And so you start to question okay, well, was he a product of playing in those quarterback-friendly systems, at UCF under Josh Heupel and at Oklahoma under Jeff Lebby. Then he comes out against Ohio State and has probably one of the best games of his career, like I said, against a defense that's just absolutely loaded with NFL talent, especially in the secondary. He torched Denzel Burke, and that guy is someone that might hear his name called in the first round in April. And Oregon's defense, obviously Ohio State put a lot of points on the board, but I thought Oregon matched up pretty well in the trenches. Ohio State had a couple big runs. They were able to cup up.
I'm a little I brought this up a couple weeks ago despite the stats because I watch them close because of this whole potential Knowles, Larry Johnson Sr., are they on the same page thing? I probably left that game with more questions about Ohio State's defensive line in spite of their talent than anything that happened in that football game. I'm just not sure. Something is disjointed with that front 7 so far this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, you raise a good point. They should be dominant. They've got JT Tuimoloau. They've got Jack Sawyer. They've got dudes all over the place that, entering the season, we kind of looked at them as Sunday guys, and they haven't been a huge factor this year. I mean, they aren't really popping out on tape.
Yeah.
And I mean, one thing I kind of noticed against Oregon was there was a lot of fundamental stuff that seemed to be missing. Like there wasn't a lot of gap security. There wasn't a lot of, staying disciplined.
Bless your heart, Will. Bless your heart. I'm a nerd, right? And I coach here, so I get sometimes this thing where it's like, oh God, this doesn't make for good radio. But I'm like, the fundamentals of like getting flat, or his head get down, you get down, or stop getting vertical in the run. I'm 100% right there with you, where it's bad fundamentals. Like seriously.
Yeah, and like I was watching the game live. I haven't had a chance to go back and watch it, but especially like Tui Moloau, there was a lot of plays where he would just kind of overplay. He would get out of his area of responsibility. He'd get out of his lane, and that would allow Dylan Gabriel to scramble around a little bit more, extend the play a little bit more. Oregon was able to get outside a lot, and so I don't know if it's Oregon's system throwing them off, if it's a technique thing. Yeah, I mean, I feel like they kind of need to go back to the drawing board there, and Ohio State's defense is definitely a big disappointment in that game. But yeah, I learned a lot about Oregon. Super physical. I think they're going to translate to the Big Ten well, from now into the future.
Well, how concerned are you about Tennessee's offense? Because in the first 3 games, they averaged 63 points per game. In the last 3 games, they've averaged 21 points per game. That's a 6 touchdown difference, which seems like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that is huge. Once they started playing against, teams that are on a similar level, even that Oklahoma game, they win comfortably, but the offense did not blow me away in that game. And I think the concern level is pretty high. You keep waiting to be like, okay, well, it's going to click at some point. Maybe this week it's going to click. Like you think Arkansas had, I think the SEC's worst 14th worst pass defense. You're like, okay, they should be able to move the ball pretty easily against them. They don't. You're like, all right, well, Florida's defense has been terrible this year. They should be able to move the ball consistently against them. They don't. Alabama this weekend. Alabama's defense, not been awesome. Can they move the ball against them? I'm starting to think probably not. And it's a combination of things. Tennessee's offensive line has been disappointing. I mean, they've got 4 starters back there, and then they went and got one of the transfer portal's best offensive tackles. They've not been good, especially the tackles. The tackles have been kind of revolving doors out there on the edge. I mean, they're not giving that offense any help. But I think Nico Iamaleava has also been a little disappointing. I mean, watching that Florida game, he missed on probably 3 or 4 throws that could have been touchdowns. He overthrew a couple guys that were running behind the secondary deep. He overthrew a guy in the red zone that was going on a slant route, and if he had caught it, he would have had the angle and the speed to probably get into the end zone. And so, he's obviously a young guy. Florida was his 7th start, I think. So you'd like to imagine that there's a higher ceiling. He's certainly got the physical traits to put it all together, and you'd imagine that Josh Heupel is the right coach to get the most out of him. But something's just not clicking there. The run game is great. I mean, you got to give them credit for that. Dylan Sampson, their running back's pretty much their entire offense at this point. But you're not going to, in modern college football, you're not going to beat the Alabamas and the Georgias of this world if all you can do effectively is run the ball. And so they've got a lot to figure out. I think it's, like I said, multiple things. Nico's not playing up to his potential. The offensive line hasn't been great. The wide receivers have been probably average at best. So, yeah, I think there's a pretty high level of concern there.
All right. Well, so 2 teams. One is because they're the next opponent on Nebraska's schedule. One is because they're right down the road. Only 1.5 percentage points separate them in these composite playoff percentage projections, and they've kind of come from off the radar. Who do you feel you know more about, Iowa State or Indiana?
I would say probably Iowa State, just because I think Iowa State has had a bit more of a difficult road to this point. Like, I mean, Indiana, I don't want to discount what Indiana is doing, because obviously for them to be undefeated at this point in the season and for them to have not struggled against anybody is extremely impressive.
They got big noon kickoff this week, Will.
Yeah, I mean, look at them. But, like, I mean, if you looked at where that program was trending, it's impressive that Curt Cignetti has come in here and immediately changed their outlook overnight, you know. And so I want to give Indiana some flowers, but Indiana's path has not been very difficult so far. It's been, you know, for most teams, be a cakewalk. Going to give credit to Indiana for doing what they're doing, but it should be a cakewalk. Iowa State played Iowa. They played West Virginia, which was a team that a lot of people honestly thought they would have some trouble against going on the road against West Virginia. And they played Baylor, which Baylor's not great, but Baylor's had its moments this year. And so, you know, through those games, I think Iowa State has established its identity of smothering you on defense and doing just enough on offense with some pretty decent playmakers like Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll and Abu Sama to get what they need to get done. And I think that they've been – I think Iowa State's been impressive this year. I think they've been probably the most complete team in the Big 12, especially when you adjust for schedule and opponent. And so I think we've learned a lot about them, and we've learned that they are a legitimate competitor.
It's unbelievable. I go back to that second half against Iowa, and I felt like at the time it was a total meltdown by Iowa, but it might just be. And it's, you know, I have obviously the luxury of hindsight. Iowa State just might have been pretty good because remember they were left for dead in the first half. They looked atrocious. If you go all the way back to that comeback against Iowa, it's incredible what's happened since then.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe that was kind of, you know, that second half was maybe kind of an awakening moment for them because they've been one of the most complete teams in the nation since, you know, the start of the second half against Iowa. And so, yeah, like I thought for a while there that was going to be – because Iowa State ended the season with a little bit of buzz. You know, a lot of people called it the best team that Matt Campbell has had, you know, during his time at Iowa State. And then they come out with a stinker in the first half against Iowa, and you're like, okay, well, maybe we're blowing Iowa State out of proportion again. And they turn it on in that third quarter, and you see a team that's like, all right, well, maybe they can make some noise. And in every game since then, they've just been backing that up and looking like a complete team. And so that's been impressive.
Will, does any part of your confidence with Iowa State as opposed to Indiana have to do with the fact that we've seen Matt Campbell kind of in power conference football for a while? We have a better sense for who he is at this level versus Curt Cignetti that we're kind of learning about on the fly at the power conference level?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some confidence in the fact that Matt Campbell's obviously been around in the Big 12 for a really long time. He's competed at a high level in the Big 12 before, you know, and that was when the Big 12 still had, you know, teams like Texas and Oklahoma. You know, there was times where he would go toe-to-toe with them and beat them. And so, yeah, like he's proven that he can do this before. And, you know, he's always been kind of one of those guys that I think is, even though he's mentioned in, you know, every single coaching carousel ever, and he's always connected to every single job opening there is around the country, I think he's one of those coaches that always kind of flies under the radar of he's been consistently pretty great. I know Iowa State's had a rough past couple years, but it's also Iowa State. This is a place that's not, you know, historically an elite college football team, so they're probably going to take some lumps every couple of years. But the fact that he's consistently got them at bare minimum competing for a bowl game, and then now you have once every 2 years, they're right there in the conference championship conversation. He's proven, you know. And I think Curt Cignetti's going to get there. I think Curt Cignetti is definitely a proven winner throughout his career. I see him kind of as like a Kalen DeBoer type, right, where he just wins. That's what he does. And so I think it's hard to doubt his ability to translate to any level. But, yeah, you'd like to see Indiana keep winning, and you'd like to see how they look against teams like Ohio State or Michigan. You know, and that'll be kind of a real metric for where they're at, and that'll be kind of a real metric for, you know, the job that Curt Cignetti's doing.
As a couple of 2-loss teams that had a lot of preseason aspirations, whose path do you like better, Ole Miss or Iowa?
If you asked me before the season, I probably would have said Ole Miss. But I think Ole Miss's path looks a little more difficult now. I mean, you got to play Oklahoma at home.
Yeah, we used to love their schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, when we were sitting there in July, I was like, man, Ole Miss should walk to the college football playoff.
Yep.
Like it should be a cakewalk. And so they've been a massive disappointment so far. That's another conversation. But, I mean, other teams other teams playing pretty well has made it look a little more difficult. I mean, they got to go to Arkansas. That game looks a whole lot more difficult than it did.
That's probably one team. Will, if you ask me to cap them, I have no idea because there's such a stark contrast between when they take care of the ball and when they don't. I have no idea who Arkansas is.
Yeah, I don't even know if we know yet. Like they have so much variance that I don't even know if we can comfortably say what kind of team they are until they play their last game of the year. And we look back and we're like, they were a whole lot better than we thought they were. Or they just fall in their face, and, a lot of those mistakes kind of eat them up, and they finish about where we sort of expected. But, I mean, I think they're a fun team. I think they're a lot better. I can't confidently say they are a lot better than I thought they'd be, especially offensively with Taylon Green and Quentin Jackson. Bobby Petrino's done great work on that side of the ball. So I think they're a lot better, and I think they could give Ole Miss a tough test. So, yeah, like they're a fun team to watch. I've enjoyed watching them this year and seeing them play.
That's Will Backus from CBS Sports. Will, we appreciate the time. We'll catch up with you again soon.
Thanks, Will.
Yeah, appreciate y'all.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back.
Had the stats. Under 4 to play in this first half. It's Howard looking sideline. Open, Abuka, touchdown! Perfectly delivered, and Abuka right there again for the Buckeyes. Had the Abuka in motion on 2nd and goal. Howard steps up. Howard. It's caught! Jeremiah Smith. Touchdown, Ohio State. The legend grows.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Harris alone setback. We'll get the pitch. The Steelers trying to seal the edge. Najee, able to slide inside one tackle. Get down the sideline. Najee Harris racing towards the end zone. Sprawls out. Is he in? Touchdown, Steelers. What a run.
Jared takes, tosses to Montgomery, flips it back to Amon-Ra. He gives it to Goff, who's going to throw downfield. He's got Laporta, makes the grab. 20, 15, 10-5, end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. How about a little razzle-dazzle in the Lone Star State? 52 yards.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. It's time for Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook, the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets, whether it's in Lincoln or in Omaha. Warhorse Sportsbook has you covered. Straight bets, live bets, parlays, props, whatever you can think of. They've got nearly every major sporting event covered. Make sure you get to warhorsecasino.com for a full list of details, house rules, and all sorts of promotions they have going on at both locations throughout the year. DB.
Yeah, babe.
I'd like you to bet on something for me.
Okay, what's that?
I've got two quarterbacks.
Oh, boy.
Freshman quarterbacks.
Okay.
One.
I'm waiting for, so we got to, where's my guy? Jed said he sent me something, but I don't have it yet. He has some info on freshman quarterbacks.
One's a redshirt freshman.
Okay.
One is Dylan Raiola, true freshman.
Okay. Damn it, I don't have it yet. Okay, go.
If you had to bet which quarterback had better stats between Dylan Raiola and Nico Yamaleva, we'll go category by category. You ready?
Yeah.
Completion percentage.
Dylan.
Yards.
Dylan.
Touchdowns.
Nico.
Interceptions.
Lower as having
Who's
fewer?
lower? Who's lower? Who's better?
Dylan.
And let's go yards per attempt.
Nico.
Okay. Completion percentage, 67% for one Dylan, 65.7 for Nico.
Okay, got that right.
Yards. This is the one I thought you were going to go Nico because of all the prolific whatever. 13.58 for Dylan. 12.19 for Nico.
I felt good about that.
Touchdowns. You said Nico.
Yep.
7 touchdowns for Nico, 9 for Dylan. Yards per attempt. You said Nico.
Yep.
How much do you think the gap is? Because you're right, it's Nico. What would you think the gap is?
It's less than a yard.
Half a yard.
Yeah.
I think there's a perception that Nico has been really, really good this year.
How about your boy, though? Am I pretty smart?
That was pretty good. I was impressed.
Thank you.
I thought I was going to get you on yards.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to get you on yards.
I
think there's a perception that Nico is
like, I like when you go on these kind of like, let's not get twisted. It's because you're selfish and you like being right.
100%. Yeah.
But you've been on this.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've done a lot of work with the freshman deal. So I'm playing in your wheelhouse now.
Yeah. I'm very familiar with these numbers.
So this is why I say, though, that if you feel like, because this has been my whole narrative, if you feel like Nebraska is truly leaving points out there on the field, don't be discouraged, be encouraged. Because while he's pretty good,
he's only going to get
better.
He's
only going to get better.
Only going to get better. He's only going to get better.
I'm just like, he's only going to get better.
100%. He's like, this is.
And I get it. So let's say you're like, oh man, this isn't Northern Iowa. This is Indiana. The thought process is still the same though, because your temper. As a coach, you look at it like leaving points out on the field is not a positive. maximizing trips in the red zone is. So let's say you're not wasting points. You're generating them in maybe what would be fewer opportunities.
Sure.
So you always want to be more efficient.
Yeah.
Nebraska will learn. You can be more efficient against better opponents. You may not have as many opportunities, but you certainly can be more efficient.
And
so I wouldn't look like – I'm just trying to get you to kind of look at it as how you have to coach it.
Well, and I think we've asked that question a couple times. I think you asked it today. I think I asked it last week, or vice versa. I don't remember which. But we asked the question, okay, how do you weigh the
– oh, there it is. I got it.
Improvement that we expect from Dylan Raiola versus the increased level of competition, right? Because that's the $1 million question here.
Yeah.
Is will the improvement from Dylan offset the improvement in the level of competition? And if it does, Nebraska's in really good shape, right? And if it doesn't, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle to score the rest of the year. Those are the outcomes.
Yeah.
Right? And it's probably somewhere less concrete than either one of those. It's probably going to be sometimes that, like against, let's say, UCLA, who is not good, then his improvement will be obviously better than the level of competition in that game. It's not going to be a linear path to, hey, this is how it goes. Now it's up here.
I know exactly what you're saying.
But I think you're looking at, for me personally, I easily think Dylan's improvement will outweigh the strength of schedule increase.
So this chart is similar to yours, except he's gone in much, much, much more detail. This bad boy is impressive. He went all the way back to 16. So 16, that was the, Shea Patterson, Jacob Eason, Jalen Hurts. Remember Felipe Franks, Dwayne Haskins.
KJ Costello was super highly rated in that one.
Yeah. Oh, look at you. You got the same thing going.
Yep.
So I'm not saying, hey, Dylan is going to be X guy. What I'm saying is, if you like where he is now, we've just gone through these statistics the last couple of weeks. If you like where he's not going to, this is just my opinion, he's not going to get worse. He's too good a talent. And he's too, some guys are missing something, like either their preparation or their football acumen or he's not missing that.
And for the most part,
he needs just more reps.
For the most part, the guys at this level that are this level of recruit, they've been evaluated as this level of prospect, they don't, if they perform, and especially if they perform early, they typically don't regress.
Yeah.
Typically, right? You've got a couple. You can make an argument that Christian Hackenberg regressed over the course of his career. But even guys we don't like, Josh Rosen got better and better.
Oh, I know.
He was good as a freshman.
Yeah.
3,300 yards, 60%, 20 touchdowns, 9 picks. He got better and better.
Sam Howell got better. Spencer Rattler got better.
We didn't love Jacob Eason. He ended up really good at Washington, didn't he?
Oh, I know. How about Rattler?
Yeah. There's a lot of these guys, almost all of them.
And who did he do that under?
Rattler?
Yeah.
I think it was a guy named Marcus Satterfield.
Yeah.
Does he sound familiar? Anyway, there's most of these guys that were good early didn't regress.
I got to get into this.
Especially at this level.
Now he's got me distracted because I want to get into, what guy I'm interested in?
Yeah.
Jackson Dart.
Ooh, I don't have his.
So there's a couple guys on here. And it's like squirrel, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm captivated. But I want to get into the whole, I want to break down Klubnik, Jackson Dart. And I'm still not sure what I'm getting out of Minchie at Notre Dame. Because isn't he supposed to be pretty good?
That's what they're saying. Klubnik hardly played at all as a true freshman, by the way.
I know.
46 pass attempts.
And because remember when they sprinkled him in late and everybody was like, oh, he's the future. Get DJU out of there.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember vividly.
Yeah.
That's why I want to get into it. Because now apparently Klubnik is back.
Yeah, but he's good now. Wasn't good last year.
And I still don't know about Jackson Dart.
I don't either. I didn't love it when he went there.
No, I know. But we gave
Lane Kiffin the benefit of the doubt
credit because he had stockpiled so many good quarterbacks. I mean, he had 2.5 good quarterbacks on his roster.
Yeah. And we ended up with Jackson Dart.
So, clearly those guys liked being there because normally good quarterbacks don't go there and chill.
No. Not at all.
And he just kept stockpiling.
But I think he's. I mean, he kind of did that at Alabama too when he was the OC.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of a guy that quarterbacks like being around. He has this reputation as sort of this quarterback guru, quarterback whisperer, and so I think guys will be a little more patient with that, especially if they have a relationship with the coach, like have a good relationship with the coach. But I get so not only historically, but even against guys currently that we think are pretty good, Dylan's way ahead of the curve. Way ahead of the curve.
Oh, yeah.
I would bet that,
and that's not even being a. That's not even
being a homer. That's why I'm using numbers.
It's just data.
That's why I'm using all numbers. I haven't said anything about how I think he is yet.
Okay, so can I go back to something with this?
Yeah.
Are you surprised that we're kind of hearing this? I don't love our receivers and backs now.
Yeah, I think you saw me probably make a face when Sam said skill position.
He's not the only.
He's not.
I've been hearing this for like 3 weeks now.
I've been on that with the running backs from the start. I've always said they were just fine.
Yeah, because you're a hater. But anyway.
Not a hater, just a pragmatist. But I don't totally understand the issue.
You cannot use my word against me.
That's my favorite thing to do.
Mr. Pragmatic.
That's Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. You can bet that Dylan Rell is going to keep getting better and better. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. Steven Means to talk Ohio State coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
It's Howard looking sideline. Open, Abuka, touchdown. Perfectly delivered, and Abuka right there again for the Buckeyes. Abuka in motion on 2nd and goal. Howard steps up. Howard. It's caught. Jeremiah Smith. Touchdown, Ohio State. The legend grows.
Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We're joined now by Stephen Means. He covers Ohio State for Cleveland.com. Stephen, how are you this morning?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Stephen, good to talk to you. Now, full disclosure, I'm when I wanted to talk to you last week, I had a question about what I was seeing versus what you guys actually feel up there close to the team. And it kind of played out, but I promise you this isn't hindsight. So last week, and this started in the summer with Knowles and Larry Johnson Sr. and kind of the big games and fundamentals along the D-line. And I get it, Tyleek, he wasn't healthy yet. But I said, guys, I get it, they're blowing teams out, but there's this disconnect, at least in my opinion, on defense between the back seven and the front four and kind of fundamentals and fitting in the run game. If I would have said that to you last week before you watched the game this week, would your answer have been different?
No, not at all.
So is that a thing?
It's been a growing conversation behind the scenes.
Okay.
For a couple of years now. There's been no, I think, tangible evidence to it being true or not true. And obviously, when you hint at it with Jim Knowles, he kind of brushes it off. But it has felt that way and sometimes, and it feels like there's something that Jim Knowles wants to do with this defense, but maybe we're not getting 100% of it because Larry Johnson has what he has in that defensive line room.
But it's not a talent issue, though, right? Because that defensive line is incredibly talented. It's just, it's philosophical disconnect?
Yeah, I think it's more that. Because obviously, you got 5 stars all over the place in the defensive line room. But when you're stuck in 4 down fronts all the time, it does kind of limit creativity, right? I think that's any defensive coordinator that would tell you that. And it feels like –
and those guys probably want to get after the quarterback, right? Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I just was like, man, I got to know because it doesn't for the talent level. And I we went through a couple weeks ago and just the first couple of rounds of the draft. It's littered with Buckeyes, but you don't, especially getting after the passer. I'm thinking to myself, I get it. You want to get vertical in the run game and sometimes you get gashed, but like the inability to get pressure in some of these games for havoc plays is kind of a trend.
Yeah, I think the recruiting talent and the production don't match.
Okay.
When you've got
Okay.
Yeah. Keep playing it safe.
And listen, it's fair to say. Now, does that mean like, hey, where's your Chase Young, McBosa, Joey Bosa? That's not fair either because those 3 are one-offs. There's not a lot of those just walking around college football in general.
Yeah.
But to just not have to not be felt every game, to not be felt, I think that's the issue right now. And those guys weren't felt on Saturday in a game where you probably needed to feel them, especially since one of the questions about Oregon was their offensive line.
That's a good point.
Stephen, what's the feeling about Ryan Day around Ohio State right now? Because I think a lot of people left that game thinking he got out-coached by Dan Lanning. And there's always been sort of this weird vibe around a guy that wins as much as he does.
I don't think when you lose a game by 1 point, you got out-coached. I think what we saw on Saturday was a heavyweight boxing match between 2 of the 3 best teams in the country. So I think to say, oh, he got out-coached, that's not fair. And he's 61-9, and his losses have been to teams who have either played a national championship or won to national championships. So that's a hard thing to sell. You got out coached in a game you lost by 1 point, where it came down to a offensive pass interference call that's questionable, and whether or not Will Howard got down with 1 second or not, right? So Like, if that offensive pass interference call doesn't happen until Jaden Fielding takes the field, he probably makes that kick. And are we saying that Dan Lanning got outcoached by Ryan Day? Probably not. It's just a good football team beating another good football team. So I don't think it's that. I think as far as how you feel about Ryan Day, I think some people have already made up their minds and feel like Ryan Day's not the guy. And then that's more of the extreme thought process. And it's obviously the louder thought process when you get on social media. But I think a lot of other people are just looking at this and going, look, man, he's 61-9. Again, he's lost some big-time games, but everybody's lost some big-time games. And who are you going to go get that's better than this guy? And I think it's fine. We now live in this new world of 12-team playoff. Nothing is off the table because Ohio State lost that game on Saturday. In fact, I think we all believe these two are going to meet again in Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship game. Whoever wins that game is going to get probably the number 2 seed at this point, unless Texas loses the game, and then we'll go from there with it. But that's why we like the 12-team playoff, because teams can play in big games like this, and it doesn't change anything, even if you want to be upset with Ryan Day for 24 hours about it.
Like, how's the relationship? I mean, obviously, tons of talent and Chip with the reverence that Day has for him having been under his tutelage before. The run balance, you can be explosive outside the numbers. You have arguably the best tandem at backs in the conference, if not the country. How's kind of that balance playing out as Ohio State tries to establish some sort of an identity offensively?
Yeah, I think it's been great so far. They've done a great job of using both Travion and Quinshon without overusing one of them. Obviously, Quinshon didn't have the greatest game against Oregon, but Travion did. Right?
Yeah, it's weird how they flip-flop, right? They do that. They can do that almost every other week.
And that's the point, right? If one guy's not having a great game, we'll just put in this other guy who's one of the 5 best running backs in the country. But then you'll have weeks when both of them are playing well. We have yet to see a week where both of them aren't playing well, and we probably won't see that this year. Plus, Will Howard being a running threat that he is, I think the run game's been fine. Now, granted, you lost 2 offensive linemen on Saturday. Tegra Shabola seems like he'll be back, though, but losing Josh Simmons hurts.
Yeah.
Man, that hurts, because there is a significant drop-off between what he is as your starting left tackle versus who is probably going to be their starting left tackle now. Maybe it's Zen Mahalski. Maybe they reshuffle some things on the offensive line here. Now, Zen did a good job filling in for Josh on Saturday. We'll see what happens when Ohio State comes back to the field in 2 weeks. But losing Josh Simmons hurts your pass game in terms of protection. It hurts your run game in terms of creating holes for guys. But in terms of the running back talent, Travion and Quinshon have both lived up to the hype.
We're talking with Stephen Means of Cleveland.com.
Stephen, what are the odds? And we're at Nebraska. Listen, we've got our hands full in Bloomington. Is there some underlying deal where you won't get the look ahead to Penn State because that's on the road versus coming off a bye where you have to sit on a loss longer to host Nebraska?
I don't think they were going to be looking over Nebraska anyway. Nebraska's got a pretty good team, man. Raiola, 4 freshmen, looks pretty good. And Ohio State, under Ryan Day, not in the business of the trap game. They haven't lost that solid game yet. Now, we know what that Penn State game is going to be. And at this point, it's probably going to be another top 5 opponent against a top 5 opponent in that game as well on the road, ironically enough. But no, I think Ohio State needs to use that game, obviously get a win, but use that game to start building momentum for the back half of the season. And so I just don't think Ryan Day, his version of Ohio State, is in this business of, let's just get through this game so we can get to the next big game. No, they're going to do all the preparation they can for Nebraska when they return to the Woody in a couple of days here, and then they'll go from there. So I think it would be unwise for them to, let's just take 2018 for an example, right? When they lost to Purdue and then went to a bye week, and then they came back and they had Nebraska right then and there off of that bye. Things didn't look great, right? Things didn't look fixed. A lot of the problems you saw that cost in the Purdue game, Nebraska almost took advantage of and almost won that game as well. And so you can't do that. Just because you've got 2 weeks to prepare, you can't be looking ahead to the next cookie. And you've got some vegetables you've got to eat first. And so I think spend a couple days licking your wounds, seeing what went wrong, seeing what you liked, improving on the good, improving the bad, and then start to get ready for Nebraska.
How healthy, in your opinion, is Tyleik Williams?
He's their best defensive lineman. And honestly, outside of Caleb Downs, I think he's been their best defensive player. So when you didn't have him for 2 games, I think one, you found out that your depth at defensive tackle wasn't as deep as maybe you were expecting it to be coming into the season. But this is a dude who obviously generates pressure for you in the pass game, but you can also drop him back, and he can be a guy who gets, pass deflections. This guy's a freak athlete, actually, for a dude who's like
320.
300. Yeah, like this guy's kind of a freak athlete, seriously, and a guy who I think might go a lot higher than the draft than maybe some people are anticipating, simply because of what his production has been, but also his testing numbers might end up going through the roof.
Steven, on the rest of the way out for Ohio State's schedule, if they duplicate the first half and go 5-1, is that good enough for the folks around Columbus?
I mean, of course not, right? You want to win every game. Like, any loss is
that's crazy.
But you'd still be in the playoff. I mean, in all likelihood, 10-2, Ohio State's in the playoff, right?
Right. Then, but again, this is not something people are used to, and so we have to continue to remind people that, hey, you lost one game, but your season is not over. But when you're used to that at Ohio State, when you're used to 2015, 2017, 2018, when one loss can end your season, I think it does take time for people's minds to reprogram it. But also, this is just a place where you can't lose a game. So right now, obviously in Columbus, it's not, no one's having a good time right now. But again, just like in 2014, you lost a game and you ended up winning the national championship. 10 years later, the same theory still applies here, where you lost a good game. You might rematch them in Indianapolis in a couple of months. You could still win a national championship.
Steve, there's no way. So I kind of hear that more teams in the playoffs means it's tougher for the fan base to deal with just getting by. Like, that seems kind of backwards, doesn't it?
I mean, that's the standard isn't standard at Ohio State. I don't think you can ask a fan, hey, be okay with losing. No, there's a context behind.
There is no, hey, I'll see you in the playoffs. No, but we got two losses.
It's still not pro sports where it's like, oh, if you lose like 4 or 5 games, it's just kind of what it is. You can't ask your fan base, hey, it's okay, they're going to lose 2 games. No. They're still going to be upset when they lose on Monday. You have to just kind of deal with those things and keep moving forward. But I just think as a program, you got to keep moving forward and know that there's still something you're playing for.
That's Steven Means from Cleveland.com.
Appreciate it, Steven.
Steven, we appreciate it. We'll catch up with you again soon.
Anytime, guys. Thanks.
Nice.
We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio tomorrow.
See you. Have a good day. Love you.